Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata formed the strongest Team 7 in history Part 1? The strongest Jinchuriki to have ever lived, the last Uchiha, possessor of the Sharingan, and the Byakugan princess with her Tenseigan. The deadliest team that never was. An ancient prophecy about the three descendants of Kagaya Otsutsuki unravels, untold secrets of the Uzumaki, Uchiha and Hyuga clans. Team 7 astronomical units. Eventual Naruhina, minor Sasahina. No reincarnation. The sun shone over the freshly cut grass. It was an unusual request to meet at somewhere as mundane as the park about something as grave as the future soldiers of the Hidden Leaf, but the third Hokage insisted he didn't want to spend another entire day trapped in the office. Kakashi sat beside the third Hokage, his brows knitted in slight confusion at what he was told. Hinata Hyuga will be on my team? Kakashi asked, his usual monotonous tone carrying an air of surprise. I thought she was decided for Kurenai's specialist tracking team. Kurenai's team specializes in sensory abilities, being a genjutsu specialist herself, the third Hokage explained. According to her results, it seems Kurine can foster Sakura's natural talent for genjutsu. Though her taijutsu wasn't as great as her other subjects, with Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburame, she will balance the team out. Kakashi silently agreed. Sakura was smart indeed, one of the best students to graduate the academy. Her genjutsu type would definitely improve and grow stronger with Kurenai as her mentor, and she would be motivated to improve her taijutsu from her fellow teammates who scored highly in their tests. With Kiba's rash personality and Shino's introspective attitude, Sakura could be the bridge between them. He paused, recalling the information he knew about the disgraced Hyuga. But Hinata, Kakashi replied, his eyes downcast as he thought deeply. A cold breeze flew past him. Several birds flew overhead as he carefully chose his next words. You must have heard the rumors that the Hyuga clan are thinking of relegating Hinata's position of the main heir due to her weakness. Hiruzen Sarutobi puffed a slow cloud of smoke. He lowered his tobacco pipe, a small smile on his face as if he decided to disclose a secret. Out of all the female students who passed the taijutsu exam, Hinata Hyuga scored the highest, the Hokage answered, watching Kakashi's grow imperceptibly wider. She merely lacks the self-conviction, which both Naruto and Sasuke have plenty of. She will learn from them. I have a hunch that Hinata's poor confidence isn't the only reason for the change, Kakashi stated knowingly. After all, his hunches were usually right. Sarutobi closed his eyes. The peaceful ruffling of the trees around them was a pleasant sound he hoped he would uphold as Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. But peace was always short-lived, delicate thing in their restless world. The land and their warring factions, it was of great importance to create shinobis of formidable strength, but also to ensure that strength does not become a danger to themselves. They were devised to protect the village, but it was a very real possibility that th weapon that was supposed to protect them could fall astray. Instead of being the Hidden Leaf's greatest strength, they could become its worst nightmare. As you know, Naruto has the nine-tailed fox within him, and Sasuke no doubt will possess the Sharingan in the future. His dojutsu to keep the demon in check. Hinata may be just as useful, more so than Sakura. And how exactly will Hinata be useful to Naruto and Sasuke? I thought the purpose of Sakura's presence in the team was to spur a rivalry between the two so they would train harder. Perhaps it was a rash choice to use childish attraction as the basis for Sakura being on the team, Sarutobi admitted, his mind recalling how that trick worked between Jiraiya, Tsunade and Orochimaru. However, it might not work so well again, especially considering the same formula was used for the fourth Hokage's team and that didn't end well. A small feeling of guilt stirred in Sarutobi as he looked at Kakashi. An image of the Jonin's younger self flashed in front of him for a split second. Sarutobi glanced back at the trees. Hinata belongs to the Hyuga clan, and their secrets of their unique taijutsu. The gentle fist, Kakashi acknowledged. If Hinata masters such a skill, then she will be able to shut down a shinobi's chakra system immediately and effectively. A silence passed between them as Kakashi pondered over the gravity of his words and the disconcerting meaning hidden in them. Lord Hokage, as deadly as it is, it's no match for the nine-tailed beast. That much is obvious, Sarutobi replied naturally, though his expression seemed strained, but were something happen like before, this technique will buy us valuable time. I see, Kakashi noted, the cogs in his mind turning as he envisioned the three in front of him. Naruto was the social pariah who was determined to prove himself to everyone. Sasuke, almost as gifted as his older brother and traumatized by the massacre of his clan because of said brother. The two already have a clear rivalry boiling between them. Add awkward Hinata, the meek heir of the Hyuga to the mix and it would make an interesting dynamic for sure. And if you teach them well, the Hokage said, standing up, they have the potential to be the strongest team the Leaf Village has had since the Sannin. There was a note of finality as he left Kakashi alone on the bench in a slight daze. Kakashi leaned back, watching his mask covering his small smirk at the idea of his new team. Two Kekkei Genkai users and a Jinchuriki of unimaginable power. An Uzumaki, Uchiha and Hyuga, he muttered to himself, for the first time excited about the prospect of leading a team of genin. I wonder how well they will do together. Kakashi Hatake, the infamous copy ninja, hoped he could be a great sensei to them like the fourth Hokage was to him. What comes next is far more difficult, Iruka announced to the class, holding the papers that decided their destiny. Now you are only genin and grouped into three-man squads, led by an elite ninja. We want each squad to have a balance of strengths and abilities. The students hung to his every word, some exchanging grins, bright determination gleaming in their eyes. Naruto attempted to scuttle closer to Sakura, who quickly shot him down a glare. He stopped his not-so-subtle attempt at getting closer, but his thoughts were undeterred by her anger. Sakura Haruno was the girl Naruto liked. A lot. She had pretty pink hair and a really nice smile. She wasn't from a famous clan and neither was he. Well, truthfully Naruto didn't know much about his family. The only thing he did know about his parents was that they might have died when the Nine Tails attacked the village, but no one would tell him for sure. No one ever spoke to him about his family or relatives. No one ever really spoke to him about anything. He often conjured ideas of his parents at night, but they ended up dark and depressing, so he stopped his pondering. Naturally, Naruto assumed Uzumaki was a common name. Rare even, since he never met another Uzumaki in the Hidden Leaf Village. Even though Sakura liked Sasuke, Naruto was determined to win her affection. He was no stranger to competition with the famous Uchiha. Naruto shot a glare at the raven-haired boy who was always the cause of his annoyance. Sasuke was always so cool, unlike him. Always winning fights, always getting the highest marks, unlike him. Naruto didn't understand what makes Sasuke so much better than him. Was he jealous? Denial was Naruto's automatic answer. To him, Sasuke was simply overrated. If Sakura liked him and not Sasuke, then Naruto would finally have won something against him. Naruto promised he'd never lose again to Sasuke Uchiha. Sakura scuttled closer to Sasuke, who shot her a warning glance. Undeterred, she smiled at him, which he promptly ignored. Her grin remained bright. After all, she was sat the closest to Sasuke. I hope I'm with Sakura, Naruto wistfully thought. As long as he wasn't in Sasuke's group, he didn't care much. Team 7, Iruka announced, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto's head perked up at the call of his name. The class of freshly graduated genins were sat on the edge of their seats. What unfortunate soul would have to be on the same team as that jinx their parents told them to avoid? The stupidest boy in the class who barely scraped a pass. Everyone knew Naruto was a hopeless cause. he was all bark but no bite. Sakura Haruno prayed her name wouldn't get called out. If she was on the same team, then she was completely and utterly doomed. Hinata, who sat at the back of the class, listened eagerly. It was silly to feel hopeful, but she clasped her hands together anyways. Hinata Hyuga. Hinata froze, shock ringing in her ears. Her name echoed repeatedly as she zoned out. Some of the class snickered and the other half silently sent their condolences. She was actually on the same team as Naruto. Her bubble of happiness popped as she watched Naruto flop in disappointment. She tried to ignore the sting. It was no secret Naruto liked Sakura, even though she and the rest of the girls in the academy only had eyes for Sasuke Uchiha. Unlike the others, Hinata didn't pay special attention to him. His standoffish personality reminded her too much of her family's austerity. And Sasuke Uchiha. Hinata's pearlescent eyes widened. She gasped audibly, suddenly attacked with death glares on all sides from girls who had previously looked at her with pity. Sakura and Ino balled their fists, lamenting their horrible luck. Naruto's head fell harder on his desk at the name of his arch-nemesis. Great. Just freaking great. Not only was he not on the same team as the girl he liked, he was stuck with none other than Mr. Popular. I'm too cool for you. He should have expected it since he had rotten luck his entire life. As for the other girl, the name Hyuga rang a bell, but Naruto couldn't pinpoint where he heard it. And Hinata was probably the only person who was never mean to him. Maybe his luck wasn't entirely rotten. His memories of the pale-eyed girl were vague and he wondered if they had ever talked. He threw a look at her over his shoulder, observing how her face changed color once their eyes met. She whipped her head away automatically. That's right, she hardly could look at him, never mind talk. She was a weird one. They better not get in my way, Sasuke could only mutter to himself. Sasuke merely glowered. A loudmouth knucklehead and a girl he didn't even knew existed. It was a recipe for failure, something that was not an option for him. Your luck's run out, Ino snorted behind Sakura. Too bad, forehead. Shut it, Ino pig, Sakura growled, glaring at the blonde. Her inner self wailed in despair. Why was the universe separating her from her soul mate? What do you see a guy like that anyways? Shikamaru asked, unable to understand the female obsession with the lone Uchiha. You are so beyond clueless, Ino replied, shaking her head. Don't you get it? No, I don't get it, 'cause I'm not a girl, he said, deadpanned. Ino smirked. Jealousy's not a good look, Shikamaru. I feel sorry for whoever's gonna be on your team. Next team 8. Sakura Haruno, Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburame, Iruka continued, bringing Ino's and Shikamaru's attention to him. The creepy bug guy and the dog boy. Sakura moaned, her head falling into her hands. She had to look on the bright side, at least she wasn't stuck with Naruto, and plus, the puppy on Kiba's head was really cute. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad. Team 10. Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akamichi. Ino internally whined as Shikamaru snickered beside her. Of all the luck, she had to end up with the lazy one who could barely lift a pen and the fat one who cared only about stuffing his face. She should have seen it coming though, since their dads were all friends and all. Naruto's hand shot up. Iruka-sensei, why does a great ninja like me have to be in the same team with a slug like Sasuke? The class burst out in laughter, not at Naruto's interruption, but because how ridiculous it was. Naruto was the worst, and for him to think he was better than Sasuke Uchiha was so ludicrous it was laughable. He was a nobody thinking he was a somebody. Sakura balled her fist up at the insult, her face comically contorted in rage. How dare you talk about Sasuke like that? She yelled, thumping him hard on the head as the rest of the girls cried in agreement. Sasuke had the best scores of all the graduating student, Iruka explained sternly. Naruto, you had the worst. If the best was grouped with the worst to create a balanced team, Hinata wondered why she was put in Team 7. She wasn't an exemplary student like Sasuke, or book smart like Sakura. Her test scores were better most of the graduating boys, so she wasn't academically poor either. Is that why she was in Team 7? Was she the mediocre one fitted between Sasuke and Naruto? Hinata felt her self-esteem shrink smaller. Just make sure you don't get in my way, Sasuke said, adding the one word Naruto hated more than any other insult, loser. Naruto stood up, his fists clenched. Hey, what did you say? Hard of hearing. The class broke into fits of laughter. Naruto gritted his teeth, ignoring Sakura's scolding. Hinata was the only girl who didn't giggle, frowning at the scene. Poor Naruto, she thought. At times like these, she wished she was brave enough to speak out in support for him, but her voice always got caught in her throat. Introduce yourselves one at a time, Kakashi began, looking at his new students with mild interest. Say things you like, or things you hate, and dreams for the future. Team 7 sat outside, their new sensei leaning against the rails as they sat on the stairs. His black mask covered his face and his forehead protector concealing one eye. The only visible part of his face was a tired eye. Hinata was certain her father requested Kurenai-sensei to teach her. The appearance of her new sensei baffled her. Sasuke found it all pointless. As a genin he simply wanted to begin missions and getting stronger was his only concern. He loathed all the needless chit-chat. Why don't you tell us things about you, so we know how it's supposed to work? Naruto said, his eyes squeezed together in confusion. Along with the symmetrical whisker-like birthmark on his face, he bore an uncanny resemblance to a fox. I'm Kakashi Hatake, the Jonin said, his voice casual and deeply thoughtful. Things I like and things I hate. I don't feel like telling you that. Dreams for the futures, never really thought about it. And hobbies. The three genin leaned in, listening carefully. I have lots of hobbies. Hinata looked unsure. Sasuke rolled his eyes and Naruto shrugged. You first. Kakashi gestured to Naruto. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like instant ramen in a cup and I really like the ramen Iruka-sensei got me at the Ichiraku noodle shop, but I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait for after you pour the water in the cup, and hobby is eating different kinds of ramen, and my dream is to be the greatest Hokage and then the whole village will stop disrespecting me and treating me like someone important. Hinata couldn't help but frown at the last part. The village's hatred didn't diminish his fire. She couldn't understand why, but one thing for sure was that she was in awe of his confidence. He had no one, and even though people shunned him, for a reason no one would say, he was determined to prove himself to everyone. And she, raised with a reputable household name and given highest standard of training since she took her first steps, couldn't land a hit on her younger inexperienced sister in a practice match. He's grown up in a very interesting way, Kakashi inwardly said. It was a skill itself that Naruto was able to express his love for noodles in one breath. It was almost surreal that the ramen-crazed boy was the son of his legendary teacher. Kakashi's eye turned to Hinata, gesturing her to begin her introduction. He noted how her eyes drifted down and her shoulders were hunched together. It was a strange sight to see a member of the powerful Hyuga clan appear so timid. The third Hokage wasn't exaggerating her lack of confidence. The poor girl looked as though she would pass out any minute. Kakashi hoped she didn't. That would be awkward. I'm Hinata Hyuga, Hinata said, his voice quieter than the chirping birds. I like cinnamon rolls. My hobby is flour pressing and I don't like the taste of shrimp. And your future dream? Hinata's face bloomed pink as Kakashi and Naruto waited for her response. She felt their curious eyes on her, waiting for her response. Sasuke glanced sideways, his bored gaze lazily watching her. Not out of interest, but if he was stuck with her for the next few years, basic information was necessary. After all, he didn't even notice she was in their class all this time. Her short hair barely brushed over her shoulders. They had a hue of dark blue just like his. Well, I want to be a great ninja like my father, she stammered, her face bright red now as she hid behind her hands. If there was something Kakashi felt when the girl stated her dream, it was pure pity. The Hyuga clan were excellent shinobis, many of which quickly promoted to Jonin level. From what Kurenai Yuhi informed him, Hinata was on the verge of her title as the heiress to the Hyuga clan being stripped from her and handed to her younger sister. Kakashi knew Hiashi Hyuga to be a stringent man, but to think he would alter their clan's tradition of the eldest inheriting power and subject his firstborn to the caged bird seal was brutal to say the least. It was no wonder the girl had no concept of confidence in her abilities. Kakashi was determined to change her meek attitude. Naruto ignored the uncomfortable feeling stirring inside him. There was no reason to be jealous of someone just because they have parents, and it was useless to ponder about his own. They were either dead or abandoned him as a baby. Naruto didn't know which was worse. And the last one, Kakashi said, his attention on Sasuke. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I hate a lot of things and don't particularly like a lot of things. A dark expression overshadowed his face. What I have is not a dream because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan's dignity and destroy a certain someone. Hinata raised her eyebrows, not expecting such a morbid introduction. His goal would explain why he always did the best in the class. Gee, I hope he doesn't mean me, Naruto muttered as he leaned close to Hinata, who had just healed from her nervousness turned a light shade of pink again at the proximity to the blonde. Just as I thought, you each unique and have your own ideas, Kakashi said, his gaze lingering on Sasuke. The first mission is tomorrow. What kind of mission, Kakashi-sensei? Hinata asked, worry swirling in the pit of her stomach as the announcement. She felt sick. And faint. Not a great combination. A task the four of us will do together. Kakashi sighed as they threw questioning looks. A survival exercise, he clarified. Somehow, a miracle occurred and Hinata had survived so far. Tired, starving and scared, but she still stood on her 2 feet. Newly formed Team 7 had one chance left to get the bells from Kakashi-sensei, otherwise their path to becoming true shinobis was over. She couldn't imagine the weight of the shame she'd face if she were to return home as a failure. It wasn't an option. I won't fail, she vowed, her hand clutching the headband dangling around her neck. Hinata brushed the dirt off her cheek. Watching Naruto take on a Jonin-like Kakashi Hatake head-on and Sasuke's tactical approach made her realize how much catching up she had to do. Even with her taijutsu, Kakashi evaded her attacks with such ease that the years she spent training felt useless. But seeing Naruto's relentless efforts and Sasuke's constant attempts instilled a foreign tenacity she didn't have before. Why should she stand back and let them do all the work? And yet, the task made no sense. Why would there be only 2 bells and 3 of them? It was as if the universe was telling her that being a kunoichi was not meant for her. Granted, the genjutsu hadn't affected her much thanks to her Byakugan, but seeing Naruto's battered body call out to her for help, disturbed her more than she ever imagined. After fighting the genjutsu, Kakashi complimented her ability to evade the illusion faster than the others. It made her smile a little, but she barely got close to the bells. Kakashi-sensei was just too fast, too strong. There was zero chance of her winning against the likes of Sasuke and Naruto. Hinata tried and aimed to grab the bells when Kakashi was distracted, futile as it was. Sasuke had even involved her in one of his plans, but to no avail. He dodged to 2 effortlessly, all while reading a book. Hinata also found out how exhausting it was to train on an empty stomach. Kakashi-sensei perhaps wasn't as evil as Hinata thought as he announced a short break. She and Sasuke were rewarded with a lunch. Tired breaths came to a slow halt as Sasuke took a bite of his food. Hinata hesitated, her eyes gazing at poor Naruto tied to the tree trunk. His stomach grumbled loudly as he let out another complaint. Guilt weighed heavy on her shoulders, unable to take a single bite of her meal despite her hunger. This is no big deal, I can go on without eating food for days, for weeks. Believe it, Naruto cried, although his rumbling stomach once again contradicted him. His head dropped. No problem. Hinata looked down at her food, a pensive look etched on her face. And if anyone tried to feed him, that person will immediately fail, Kakashi warned. I make up the rules, you follow them. Got it. Kakashi-sensei forbade them to feed him. Hinata was taught discipline at a young age, to strictly follow the orders of the elders. No questions asked. But what sort of shinobi would stand by and let their teammate suffer? Sasuke must have read her thoughts, Hinata thought with a mix of relief and surprise. Here, he stated simply, holding his food out. Hinata immediately copied him, holding out her tray out. What? Naruto blurted. Kakashi-sensei's gone, Sasuke replied, furrowing his eyebrows, and we need to get those bells as a team. And if we all aren't up to our full strengths, then it'll make it harder for us to succeed. Naruto blinked at Hinata. I can't take it. Hinata's confusion overpowered her incessant embarrassment as Naruto stared at her, deep blue orbs looking directly at her gray eyes. Naruto was the hungriest out of them all, it made no sense to her why he would refuse. Why? I can't take it because I can't move my hands. He replied, struggling against the ropes to prove his point, you gotta feed me. There it was. The scalding blush branding her pale cheeks. The sound of Sasuke's gruff voice instantly pulled her out of her daze. Hurry up. He'll be back any minute, Sasuke ushered the two, peering around cautiously. Hinata lifted her chopsticks, her hand shaking. Naruto closed his eyes and opened his mouth wide, waiting for the taste of delicious rice. Hinata couldn't believe that not only she was breaking the rules, but she was feeding Naruto too. It was like seen from a dream. As soon as Naruto swallowed one mouthful, a sudden gust of wind blew in their direction. Hinata dropped her tray in shock, shielding her face from the formidable force. It was as if the sky instantaneously turned gray, dark billowing clouds looming over the field. Kakashi, seemingly out of nowhere, appeared in front of the three. You broke the rules, Kakashi said, his voice harsh echoing ominously. I hope you're ready for the punishment. Kakashi performed a series of hand signs. The clouds crackled with electricity and the ground shook as if there was an earthquake. Hinata hugged her body tightly, falling to her knees as Sasuke put his hands up defensively, a scowl on his face. Any last words? You said there were three of us, that's why Hinata. Naruto was lost for words, coming to the realization that they didn't have a good enough excuse. But to his surprise, Sasuke jumped in. We're all on this squad and we're all in it together, he stated, his tone resolute. That's why Sasuke and IG gave Naruto our lunch. Hinata chimed in, mustering all the courage she had left inside. She staggered back onto her feet with her fists up. The three of you are one, that's your excuse. The wind stopped. Silence. Kakashi breathed out a small laugh. You pass. The three genins exchanged quizzical looks. The storm cloud dispelled and warm sunshine peered through once again. What? Sasuke said, full of disbelief. Congratulations on being the first squad to succeed, he said, only his eye giving a clue that he was grinning widely. Others fell into every trap and couldn't think for themselves. Are you for real? Naruto exclaimed, struggling against the ropes as he kicked in exasperation. I don't quite get it, Kakashi-sensei, Hinata spoke up, lowering her arms. A ninja must see through deception, he said, his tone clear and somber. In the ninja world those who break rules are scum, those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. The image of Obito Uchiha flashed in Kakashi's mind. Always remember that. Hinata nodded. Naruto and Sasuke were her team now and she would never leave them. She inhaled deeply. The feeling of genuine happiness was unfamiliar to her but she liked it. Great. Naruto cried out sarcastically, "Can I get some food now?" His stomach grumbling louder than before. Sasuke sighed. It was a fact he had to accept. He really was stuck with this dope. Sasuke glanced over to Hinata, who beamed at him. She wasn't so bad. He misjudged her. Not he would ever admit it out loud. Hinata didn't mind the D ranks. They were safe, comfortable, even familiar. Cleaning gardens, catching runaway pets and finding lost items, but soon got a little tedious. Watching Naruto go overboard because he wanted to be better than Sasuke was funny at times, or even Sasuke fighting off a stray cat that jumped on his head was something that made her snort in a very unladylike manner. The new C-ranked mission made her stomach churn. It can't be that bad, can it? All they had to do was protect the builder. Add a rogue ninja, corrupt billionaire and an assassination squad, the C-ranked mission was turning to an A- ranked. And now there were ninjas from the mist trying to kill them as well as a mafia gang watching their every step. Hinata sighed, remembering the good old days of picking weed from someone's garden for a few coins. Zabuza's still alive, Kakashi announced. He leaned against the wall, a threadbare blanket draped over him. Tezuna's home was bare, an old table and 3 wooden chairs. The kitchen appliances turned off at random times. There was an old generator in the basement, the reason why there was running water and electricity while other homes went without. The dusty floorboards creaked under their weight and wallpaper peeled off the room walls, blotched with gray mold in the corners. Mattresses were a luxury in the village. Tezuna explained how he had to sell his bed to afford another meal for him, Inari and his mother. Crime was rampant in the poverty-stricken island, with old and youth alike hopeless of the future. Except Tezuna. His bridge to connect the isolated island to the bustling mainland was their only hope. But we saw his body. Naruto spluttered, shaking his head in disbelief. And how are we supposed to beat him when you can barely move? Sasuke added cynically. I can still train you, Kakashi said as if was the most logical thing. Will that really help us, Kakashi-sensei? Hinata asked, glancing at the leg plastered with bandages. Her tone hardly showing a speck of confidence. Sasuke glanced at her. Seriously, with something as coveted as the Byakugan, she ought to be less nervous. And adding to the fact that her taijutsu wasn't half bad, her self-doubt was starting to vex him. He couldn't wait to unlock his own clan's dojutsu, the Sharingan. Things are going to get better from now on. Believe it, Naruto exclaimed. I don't believe it, a newcomer said. Sasuke, Hinata and Naruto turned around. A scrawny, short boy stood in the doorways, his cheekbones protruding, his empty eyes on Naruto. The blonde squinted his eyes in silent rage. Who the hell was this pipsqueak? Welcome back, grandfather. The boy threw his arms around Tezuna, squeezing tightly. Inari, that was very rude, Tsunami scolded her son. These ninja helped your grandpa and brought him here safely. Mom, they going to die? Inari's voice sounded so certain, Naruto clenched his fists. Did the boy think they were that weak? Gato's men are gonna wipe them out. What did you say, brat? Naruto interrupted, smirking. I'm gonna be Hokage one day and this Blato or whatever he's called is no match for a hero like me. There no such as a hero. You're just full of stupid ideas. What did you say? Hinata grasped Naruto's arm as he marched towards the small boy. Naruto, I don't getting into a fight with Inari is a good idea. If you wanna stay alive, you better go back where you came from. Team 7 exchanged looks, perturbed by Inari's pessimism. Kakashi's impromptu lesson that was supposedly going to help them work together and beat the notorious rogue ninja of the mist, one of the deadliest ninjas recorded, was tree climbing. Hinata inwardly face-palmed, but didn't have it in her to express it out loud. They stood a small clearing of the forest, not far off from Tezuna's home. We will begin with a review of chakra, Kakashi stated. Right, Katra, Naruto grinned. We know this, Sasuke said, His mouth carried a smirk as he stretched his arms. Chakra, Kakashi corrected with a sigh, and none you have mastered this particular skill. Focus the chakra towards the soles of your feet. If you can master this, you can master any jutsu. Naruto took the first shot, his eyes fixated on the tree trunk. 1 step, 2 steps, and that was how far he climbed until gravity pulled him back down to the earth. He clutched the back of his head, soothing the bump that grew from the impact. Sasuke was next. He sprinted straight ahead, feeling his chakra pool in the bottom of his feet. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. On his 4th step, he broke into the wood, losing his balance. He scraped the tree with his kunai as he fell back towards the ground. It wasn't as easy as he initially thought it looked. Hinata closed her eyes. Focusing her chakra was second nature. She was trained in chakra control since she had first began to use her Byakugan. She felt her chakra pool in the soles of her feet, and keeping it there was easy. Her eyes flared open as her legs raced up the tree effortlessly. Her legs kept going until she reached the final branch. A grin blossomed as she saw Naruto, Sasuke and Kakashi as small specks. It seems like Hinata has the best chakra control, Kakashi said, watching the girl smile confidently as she sat atop, swinging her legs. As expected from a Hyuga. Way to go, Hinata. Naruto cried, looking up at her. How did you do that? Sasuke muttered under his breath. It seems like she is more skilled than she letting on. We spoke about someone becoming Hokage one day, didn't we? Kakashi said. Naruto's eyes squinted, an expression he usually did when he was unhappy. Kakashi looked at Sasuke, looking at the trees with a brooding stare. And great Uchiha clan might not be so great after all. Why did you stop? Sasuke asked curiously. The tree trunk was scratched with his kunai knife, each line higher than the one before. Naruto's mark on the tree was stuck on the same scratch for the last 15 minutes. Hinata's training too, he said, a mischievous smile growing on his face. I'm gonna ask her for some tips. The thudding sound echoed in the stillness of the night. Under the pale moonlight, Naruto watched Hinata repeatedly strike the trunk of the tree with lethal force. Sweat dripped down her face. Naruto realized she was training just as hard as he was. He jumped down the tree, startling her. Your chakra control is amazing, Hinata, he smiled. Why are you up so late? She blushed, hating how tongue-tied she got when Naruto did something as simple as speaking to her. She looked at her bruised palms. I still need to get stronger. You saw how useless I was when we were fighting Zabuza. Wait, did Sasuke say that to you? He asked, anger rising up inside him. Hinata shook her head. I know I should have done more. If it wasn't for you, we would have been lost in that mist when Zabuza first attacked. And thanks to you, we prepared for the ambush. I could have been poisoned by those mist ninjas. But I could barely defend myself if only I. You gotta give yourself more credit, Naruto interjected. I think you were amazing, especially with your Byakugan. Thanks and Naruto, Hinata said, her rosy cheeks dimmed by the darkness of the night. And don't worry, we'll all get stronger together, right? Oh, of course. Naruto scratched the back of his head with a nervous laugh. So, can you give me more tips on how to control my chakra? Hinata nodded. The problem is you need to maintain the chakra in the sole of your feet. Your C chakra travels too quickly to the upper P pathways where your arms are, and that's why you lose control. And Sasuke P pushes too much chakra towards his soles in an instant, like he does when he fights. He needs focus on keeping it there. Chakra pathways? What do you mean? Everyone has pathways in their body where C chakra flows, she said. I can see it with my Byakugan, and that's what I see when you try to climb the tree. Wow, Naruto whispered, you're pretty amazing, you know. Hinata's blush deepened with the compliment. I hope that helps. Sure does, He grinned. I'm gonna head back and keep practicing. Sasuke looked at Naruto curiously. Since his talk with Hinata, there was victorious glint in his eyes. His mouth gaped open as he watched Naruto overtake his high score by a single step, his kunai mark an inch higher than his own. Hey! Sasuke called out, what did Hinata tell you? Naruto smirked. I'm not telling. Sasuke's left eye twitched in annoyance. The morning sun shone over the ocean, glistening waves rolling in the distance. It was a habit of Hinata's to wake up early. Everyone was still fast asleep. Naruto came back late at night, completely exhausted. She smiled, feeling a sense of admiration. He got carried away with his chakra training, no doubt because he wanted to surpass Sasuke. As Hinata stepped outside, a chilly breeze flew past her. She zipped her coat up, taking a deep breath of the salty ocean air. She spotted Inari curled up on the dock. He stared blankly at the water. It's Inari, isn't it? I'm Hinata. Hinata sat beside him. Inari made no acknowledgement of her presence. You and Naruto don't get along, but trust me, he isn't a bad person at all, she said. Your grandfather told us what happened to your father. And Naruto didn't know his parents either. His voice went quieter, a guilty expression on her face. He didn't have anyone, not a single friend. Really? Inari looked at her for the first time since she started talking. And Naruto never lets that make him sad. He's always trying his best and never gives up, even if he's having a difficult time. He's really helped me become confident too. I think he realized that there's no point to crying and decided to do something about it. I guess I'm the same as well. You can't keep crying over the same thing all the time. It took me a long time to realize that. Naruto knows what it means to be strong, like your father. I think why you can be just as strong as your father, Inari, Hinata said, the young boy looking at her with newfound strength. He's on your left, Kakashi-sensei. Hinata cried, her Byakugan piercing through the thick mist with ease. Kakashi appreciated her help, but he couldn't carry on fighting blind. And he had the perfect strategy for it. Troublesome girl, Haku said, fear tangible in his voice, her Kekkei Genkai seized through the mist. Inside the gilded icicle torture chamber, Haku's unique Kekkei Genkai that trapped Sasuke and Naruto. Thousands of needles flew from the mirrors, reflecting the boy's image. Sasuke, his Sharingan glowing brightly, leapt in front of Naruto, bearing the brunt of the attack. He collapsed, his eyes closing. Is this the first time you have seen a friend die in battle? Haku asked expressionlessly. This is part of what it means to be a ninja. Shut up. Naruto hated Sasuke, but during the mission, they were more than petty rivals. They were helping each other get stronger, pushing one another to the limits. A rage stormed within Naruto, one he couldn't control. An orange aura encapsulated Naruto, swirling around him like ropes of fire. Chakra rushed through his body, enlarging the pathways as power surged at frightening levels. It didn't make any sense to Hinata. Naruto's chakra was stronger than hers, but it was never monstrous, not like this. Not even Zabuza or Kakashi possessed this amount of power. One thing Hinata was certain of was that this chakra was not entirely his own. It made no logical sense, but as she watched him with her Byakugan, it was obvious Naruto had something within him. A small smile bloomed on her face. What are you smiling about, little lady? Tazuna yelled, beads of sweat rolling down his face. Your friends are trapped in those mirrors and your sensei can't even see Zabuza. Naruto's stronger than you think, stronger than anyone imagined, Hinata added inwardly, and Sasuke's still breathing. He laid in an unceremonious heap on the ground, hundreds of needles protruding from his limbs. His breathing was shallow, small gasps drowned by the noise of the fight. The needles missed his vital organs, and Hinata didn't know if that was done on purpose to torture Sasuke, or if Haku's aim was oddly poor. She decided to go with the former. It was no surprise if Haku had a penchant for savagery with a father figure like Zabuza. Her attention diverted to other fight. Kakashi-sensei, Zabuza is 10 feet in front of you. She yelled. Has the seal been broken? Kakashi said under his breath, his eyes glancing at the icicle trap. This puts everyone in danger. I'm going to kill you. Naruto roared, his canines turning into fangs. Haku's attention darted to Naruto, his shock hidden by his mask. The boy's eyes were a bloodthirsty red, the marking on his face growing bold. He threw his needles with expert precision to put down the rabid animal. His attacks were repelled quickly by Naruto's blazing aura. His only chance to end the fight was to take his out from behind. Haku jumped out of the ice mirror, aiming his kunai at the boy. Impossible, he cried as Naruto spun out the way. He had to get back into the glass, it was too much of a risk to tackle him head-on. As Haku leapt to the glass, a hand grabbed his, pulling him down to the ground. Haku attempted to pull it away, but the iron grip and the amount of chakra extruding from Naruto made it an impossible task. The crystal mirrors cracked into splinters, shattering piece by piece as if it was raining ice. Haku had no more chakra to sustain his fight against Naruto. He only prayed Zabuza may forgive him for his weakness. With that single thought, Haku closed his eyes and waited for Naruto's fist. The force launched him in the air, tumbling and falling like a lifeless rag doll. And just as the mirrors smashed, Haku's mask split in half. His fist stopped inches away from his face. You're that person I met earlier. Haku didn't care. He had failed. He had failed Zabuza and deserved no reason to live on. I want you to kill me. The fog is starting to clear up. Tazuna exclaimed. Hinata breathed a sigh of relief. Kakashi-sensei's plan was working out. It was his job to deal with Zabuza, and Sasuke and Naruto to deal with Haku. Her responsibility was to defend Tazuna from any stray attacks. She wondered why Naruto stopped his assault on Haku. They were so close to winning. Kakashi powered the Chidori, blue lightning crackling in the fog. His pack of hounds rendered Zabuza immobile, at the mercy of Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja. Haku's eyes grew wide. He swiftly dodged Naruto kunai, disappearing into the fading fog. He cannot die just yet. There was still one thing his pathetic existence was capable of. A massive surge of power exploded on the ground. Hinata shielded her face, the sheer force almost toppling her over. What was that? Tazuna yelled behind her. Everyone froze. Kakashi's attack that was intended for Zabuza was blocked by Haku, the young boy sacrificing his life to save the monster that gave his life purpose. What happened after was a whirlwind. Hinata tried to keep up, but there were blanks her mind couldn't fill in. Gato's thugs showed up, outnumbering them all. She held her kunai higher, moving in closer to Tazuna. The mission was to protect the bridge builder. They were too close to completing the mission to give up now. Hinata was amazed at Naruto's impassioned speech. His words seemed to echo in the demon of the hidden mist's heart. Gasps of shock escaped her as she watched Gato's thugs stab swords into Zabuza's back as sprinted at Gato. Kakashi, Naruto and Tazuna watched the scene unfold in front of them, ending with Gato falling to his death in the rive below and Zabuza's dying body beside Haku's corpse. Fresh snow fell from the clouds. It was the first sign of calm in the tumultuous week. The night sky glittered with countless stars, their beauty outshone by the crescent moon beaming through the dark. The air was quiet, save for the occasional hoot of owls. It was the last night of camping before they made it back to the Leaf Village's Genins who unknowingly, miraculously completed an S-rank mission. Hinata rolled over to her side for what seemed the 10th time in the past 5 minutes. A frustrated sigh escaped her lips. How could she sleep peacefully after everything that happened? To think someone the same age as her did not care that his life was used as a disposable tool, as nothing more than a mere object is his life's purpose. Was she also a disposable tool as all ninjas? Hinata shook her head as if it would make the dreadful thoughts flee. Unlike Haku, she had a bigger purpose in life. She was supposed to be the heiress to the Hyuga, a kunoichi that protected the people she loved. She had friends and family, but Haku had no one but Zabuza. One thing she agreed on was that she too would not hesitate to step in and save someone precious to her, no matter the cost. But that wasn't the only thing on her mind. She rolled to her right side once more, alarmed to see Naruto looking directly at her, the small fire between then showing his pensive expression. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly, sitting up from his sleep bag. He took her rumination as a silent confirmation. "Me neither." The question that haunted her mind materialized again. The flickering flames cast gray, dancing shadows on Naruto's face. Kakashi was keeping watch for the night, patrolling the perimeter of the campsite. On the far side, Sasuke's back faced them, low snores heard coming from his direction. Hinata sat up, pulling the blanket with her. She had a terrible habit of fidgeting because of her nerves. "See, can I ask you a question?" Hinata asked softly, twiddling the edge of the blanket. "Sure. What is it?" "When you were fighting Haku, why your chakra changed color?" Naruto's body seized up, avoiding her eyes. His stare darted to the small fire that kept them warm, trepidation brewing in the pit of his stomach. "It wasn't your chakra, was it?" She continued, noticing how his eyes were clouded with an emotion she couldn't fathom. "It was like a monster possessed you." "A monster? Huh." Hinata's eyes widened at the implication. She backtracked, realizing how cruel she sounded. "And no, I didn't mean you're one." "Why not? Everyone else does," Naruto said, his voice uncharacteristically bitter. "I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was unlike you and I. I got scared." Naruto's gaze flicked to Hinata, his jaw hardening. He didn't have a single friend growing up, and since becoming a genin, it looked as though those lonely days were left in the dark for good. He no longer hated Sasuke, finally understanding him like a bother. And Hinata, a girl he once thought of as a weird classmate, was in fact one of the strongest and kindest people he knew. And Naruto didn't know many people like that. Iruka-sensei, the third Hokage, and maybe Kakashi-sensei. Naruto couldn't bear the thought of losing his friendship with Hinata. "You know I'd never hurt you, right?" Naruto meant it with all his heart, yet he was terrified of her response. "Of course," Hinata smiled, instantly eradicating Naruto's fears. But I'm scared that whatever it is will hurt you one day." Naruto took a deep breath. "I have the nine-tailed beast sealed inside me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I guess it was an easy choice to trap the beast that killed the fourth Hokage in an orphan baby that no one cared about." "I'm sorry, Naruto," Hinata whispered. She didn't know when, but somewhere along their conversation, they shuffled closer together, their shoulders touching each other. She absent-mindedly placed a hand over his. "I saw how everyone treated you badly and I didn't know how to help." Naruto's eyes fell to her hand that was on top of his. He shot her a grin. "That's all in the past. Anyways, you're helping me now. I thought you'd hate me like everyone else." Hinata did her best to hide her repulsion, but she ended up making a face like she suddenly sniffed a foul smell. Did Naruto really believe she'd hate him for something that wasn't his fault? But he trusted her enough to tell her his darkest secret. Hinata retracted her hand away slowly, putting them in her lap. "Don't worry, your secret's safe with me." "Thanks, Hinata." He missed her comforting touch. "Oh, one more thing. Yeah, your nindo that you mentioned at Haku's and Zabuza's grave, about how you never go back on your word," Hinata said, twiddling her fingers as his face tinged pink. "I think I'm going to make that my ninja way too." Naruto's mouth fell ajar, surprised by her revelation. Her nervous eyes met his and he tossed her his signature fox-like grin. "That's awesome." He paused, studying her face. "It looks like you're getting a fever." He put his hand on her forehead, her warm skin confirming his thoughts. We gotta get you to the hospital as soon as we get back. I'm fine, Hinata squeaked, pulling her head away. She scrambled back to her sleeping bag and tucked herself in. Good night, Naruto. Team 7 were making their way back to Konoha, having completed the D-rank mission. The sun started to set on the horizon, the sky deepening from a vibrant magenta to a bright orange and finally to crimson. The forest seemed to go on endlessly, wild shrubbery sitting below the huge canopies. Why do we get a lame mission to find a stupid plant? Naruto complained, trudging along the off-beaten path. Sasuke threw his a dirty look. It's a rare flower, idiot. Whatever, how are we supposed to get stronger if we're looking for a freaking flower? Sasuke silently agreed with Naruto. They had the Sharingan, Byakugan, and even his stupid teammate was pretty good at shadow clones, a Jonin-level technique. And yet, here they were wasting 3 days because of a damned flower in a remote part of the land. They hadn't come across a single enemy. The biggest danger they encountered was a small rock that tripped Naruto and almost broke his nose. Sasuke was glad they were finally heading back home. He hoped the Hokage would assign them a real mission. It's for the Yamanaka flower shop, Hinata piped in, following behind them. Then Ino should get it herself. Team 10 is away on a different mission, Hinata reminded Naruto. She took the flower out of her bag, the iridescent petals glittering like gems in the evening light, and we've already found it. The dope would know if he remembered how to use his eyes and ears, Sasuke remarked with thinly veiled annoyance. What did you say? Naruto balled his fists. Hinata jogged quickly and planted herself between the two boys. I'm sure Sasuke didn't mean it. I did, he deadpanned, goading Naruto with a massive smirk. Naruto bared his teeth. Stand aside, Hinata. We're gonna finally settle this. She sweat dropped, having heard the statement several times during the mission. She refused to budge, putting her hands up to placate him. How about we take a break? No, the two said simultaneously, reaching for their kunais. We have set up C camp, it's getting late. Hinata cried pleadingly as the two shifted into an offensive stance. It was time for the ultimate weapon. I packed us all food. At the mention of food, Naruto's stomach grumbled and Sasuke looked at her, intrigued. Hinata made a mental note to bring a whole buffet with her next time. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly with a laugh, forgetting all about his glaring contest with Sasuke. I never say no to food. What did you make this time? Sasuke asked, peering at her backpack expectantly. Is it omusubi with okaka and tomatoes? That was his favorite dish. 3 blue tents perched under the shade of a large tree. The serene gush of water was heard close by. Sasuke had made a small fire using the fireball jutsu. To think he used the Uchiha's famed jutsu to make a campfire instead of burning a foe's flesh made him scowl. The 3 of them sat around as the darkness of a cool night descended upon them. Naruto analyzed the rice ball Hinata gave him, squinting with fascination. It looked just like him. Hinata sure did put a lot of effort in her cooking. Sasuke frowned just like the face that he guessed was supposed to be him on his rice ball. Hinata watched with relief as they took a bite. She was not one for confrontation, but she soon learned that if she didn't step in as a peacemaker, Naruto and Sasuke could spend days fighting one another. Homemade food, it seemed, was the only solution to their relentless rivalry. Wow, Hinata, this is delicious, Naruto cried. You'll make a great wife one day. Hinata felt lightheaded at the comment. She wobbled right to left, feeling her consciousness drifting away, and she was gone. Her arms cushioned her drop as she fell onto the wild grass. Hinata, Naruto said, unsure. He turned to Sasuke, who had already finished his snack. I guess she was really tired and went to sleep. Idiot, Sasuke muttered under his breath, making his way into his tent. Naruto blinked, puzzled by his teammates' behavior. Naruto woke up in the middle of the night, rubbing his eyes blearily. He hated when his sleep was interrupted, but nature called. He slipped his shoes on, stumbled out of his tent, eventually finding a suitable place behind the trees. Business done, he zipped his pants and headed back to his tent. Except something caught his eye, movements in the distance. He walked further along, arriving at a grand waterfall in the clearing. Several streams of water gushed down from the rocks, combining into one single drop into a large pool. A figure stood atop the water. Naruto was captivated by the ethereal display. He ducked, hiding behind a bush as he watched, unable to pull his azure gaze away. The silhouette twirled, droplets of water surrounding her formed like clusters of diamonds. The water cascaded around her like a silvery cocoon, reflecting the moonlight. She took delicate steps, skipping in front of the waterfall as if she was skating, swirling and gliding, an enchanting dance under the stars. Naruto could only stare in awe, hypnotized the woman's mystifying allure. Her slender arms moved around in a gently, forcing water to rise below her into thin streams that whirled around her figure like fluid ribbons, wrapping around her body. His legs moved to their own accord, dragging his body towards the waterfall. Hey, what's your splash? The figure gasped softly, bringing her arms around her body. Naruto lifted his head, spitting out the salty water. He silently swore at the rock that he slipped on, shaking his wet hair. As he looked around, his chest full of anticipation, the figure was nowhere to be seen. His bubble of happiness popped as he heaved himself out the water, grumbling under his breath. He would never find out who the angelic creature was. Sasuke's eyes shot open. He sat up straight, looking around suspiciously. Naruto had left his tent a while ago and hadn't returned. His lips pressed into a thin line as he threw the blanket off his body. If the idiot thought he could get stronger than him by training in secret, he had another thing coming his way. Sasuke tied his Konoha headband and slipped outside. A sudden splash caught his attention and he ran to the source of the sound. When he arrived at the waterfall, he raised his brow, a humorous smile curving on his expression as he folded his arms. Naruto sneezed as he waded out of the shallow water, looking up at Sasuke in confusion. What are you doing in the water? There was a beautiful woman taking a bath. Naruto stated, his clothes dripping wet like his hair. What the hell, Naruto? Sasuke blurted, unfolding his arm. His voice a pitch higher as he stared at the blonde, completely scandalized. I didn't know you were a big-ass perv. I just wanted to know her name. Naruto defended himself, plus, I didn't the specific details of her. Stop talking, you dirty idiot, Sasuke snapped, his face a light shade of pink. He scrunched his face in disgust, though a strange curiosity poked him senses. How could you spy on Hinata like that? Hinata, Naruto repeated incredulously. He whipped his head back and forth wildly. Nah, it wasn't her. It could only be her. Sasuke stressed. Look around, dope, we're in the middle of freaking nowhere. Naruto squinted his eyes in a fox-like fashion, considering Sasuke's point. It was a beautiful woman. He said stubbornly, plus, it looked nothing like Hinata. Are you calling Hinata ugly? No, I'm just saying it wasn't her. Naruto retorted, affronted by the shallow notion. He wouldn't dare think about Hinata in that way. She was his best friend. He still preferred Sakura and her smile, wondering when she'd be his girlfriend. But the woman in the waterfall was way prettier than Sakura. Let's settle this. We'll go check Hinata's tent, Sasuke whispered, tapping his chin with his index finger thoughtfully. He raised a conspiratorial brow as Naruto listened carefully. If she's there then you're right, and if she isn't, I'm right and you're officially a perverted freak. Naruto didn't contest Sasuke's ultimatum as the two tiptoed to Hinata's tent. A part of him felt guilty for intruding on their teammates' privacy, but the need to get to the bottom of the predicament was inescapable. Sasuke's eyes scanned the area as Naruto slowly unzipped the tent, careful not to make too much noise. There Hinata lay in her sleeping bag, her body rising and falling as she slept. A sly grin crossed Naruto's face. He jumped in joy. "Ha, I told you," he half whispered, half cheered. "You're still a pervert," Sasuke grumbled, peeking his head inside her tent to make sure Naruto wasn't making it up. Hinata's wet hair drenched her pillow as she hid her burning face under the blanket. As soon as Naruto and Sasuke's bickering faded into silence, Hinata pushed her blanket off. She had tossed her clothes on so quickly that her coat was worn the wrong way. She exhaled, her heart still thudding 100 miles per hour since she sprinted back to the camp from the waterfall, blind panic fueling her legs. All she wanted was a peaceful bath, to scrub the grime and sweat from her body and train a little as well. What she did not expect was the simple wash to transform into a salacious show to entertain her crush. Hinata felt her ears burn at the mere thought of it. She was grateful that he didn't believe it was her, but she was still mortified that she'd been caught in a situation her father would deem irreparably shameful for a Hyuga. Forget about losing her position as heiress, she would have been outright disowned by her entire clan. The next morning, Hinata lagged further behind Sasuke and Naruto, clutching the straps of her backpack as she stared at the ground. She could not look either of them in the eye after last night. "Come on, Hinata," Naruto called as he and Sasuke stopped for her to catch up. Naruto grinned at her when she approached them. "You're missing out on our conversation." Sorry, what conversation? Yesterday, I saw the most beautiful woman dancing in the waterfall." Dancing. Hinata's left eye twitched, her pale face reddening at Naruto's brazen description. It was far from that. Hinata was training. She tried to fuse the water with her chakra to create a fluid needle-like projectiles as a defense mechanism. Of course she usually trained with her clothes on, but she really felt comfortable enough in the knowledge that she was all by herself. How wrong she was. Yeah, I wanted to know who she was, but she ran off before I got to ask. Sasuke scoffed, his hands tucked in his pockets. "You were probably dreaming." "Well, if she was the woman of my dreams, I wouldn't mind." He grinned, laughing bashfully. "Freaking perv," Sasuke muttered, shaking his head as Naruto continued to beam, reminiscing about the mystery girl. Hinata flushed, her slow pace halting to a stop. She burned hotter than the sun. With a squeak, she covered her face with her hands, unable to survive any more of the humiliation. "Hinata, you okay?" Naruto asked, perplexed by her reaction. "It looks like you're coming down with a fever again." Sasuke's stoic stare flitted back and forth between the two. His eyes widened in shock as the pieces of the puzzle clicked in his brain. Holy crap, Sasuke cursed under his breath. The magical woman Naruto couldn't shut up about was Hinata after all. Deep down, he wished he could have sneaked a peek at what Naruto saw. There must be a reason why she always wore that oversized coat. Sasuke Uchiha never was jealous. Not at all. Everyone was jealous of him, that's how things were. He couldn't blame them. He had skills only others his age could dream of. And his good looks too. There was an obvious reason why all the girls fawned over him. Face, brain and brawn. Sasuke was always proud of what he had achieved, but his success didn't blind him from his true goal. He had focus. He had a goal, a mission that fueled his thirst for vengeance, for justice. Yet, lately he was distracted. Sasuke couldn't understand why the green-eyed monster reared its ugly head when he watched Hinata pay more attention to Naruto than him. It was strange, and he hated the fact that he couldn't rationalize the discomfort. Something warm stirred inside him when Hinata asked him if he was okay. It wasn't like the others, who cried if he got so much as a scratch on him. Hinata wasn't motivated by infatuation. Then that warmth changed to ice when Hinata rushed to the idiot, looking at him with those big, innocent eyes. Simply put, Sasuke Uchiha was not used to being ignored. In fact, Hinata's lack of obsession with him was one of the reasons he could tolerate the girl. Unlike the silly blonde on Team 10 and the pink-haired girl with the enormous forehead, Hinata Hyuga didn't treat him like a precious object to swoon over. He was glad he didn't have a clueless cheerleader crying his name out all the freaking time. Hinata was different and he liked that. But she was not as different as he initially thought. He liked that too. Maybe a bit too much. Sasuke never imagined that he could relate to the pampered heiress. There were nights the nightmares refused to let him sleep. The blood pouring through the streets, the bodies of people he loved piled roads. Shurikens still embedded in the limbs of people he called family. Smashed windows, glass littering the streets he walked every day to the academy. The defiled symbol of the Uchiha clan on the ground. The inescapable terror. And worst of all, the pathetic fear. Sasuke was too weak. Too weak to protect his own family. During nights like these, Sasuke strolled to the village lake, as he usually did when it got too much. The silence in the air, only broken by the gentle sounds of the water, quelled his rage. But this time someone was there already. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the figure sitting in his spot. He frowned, recognizing the silhouette of the person. Sasuke, Hinata exclaimed, startled as he sat beside her. What are you doing here at this time? He shot a look sideways, and don't lie. Hinata sighed, pulling her knees back towards her chest. Why you won't care? Sasuke's expression remained impassive, expertly hiding the turmoil twisting inside him. Hinata was right. He didn't care at all, but she piqued his curiosity. Try me, he merely said. From his peripheral, he saw her eyes widen. Just like Naruto, Hinata was an open book. Her eyes gave too much away. The fear when the enemy charged towards her, recognizing the Byakugan. The way she hunched her shoulders when she was disappointed in herself at a failure. And the expression Sasuke noticed more and more often was the red blush on her face when she was around Naruto. His eyes flickered to meet hers and Hinata briefly contemplated. Sasuke was her teammate, so maybe deep down he really did care, even if it was just a bit. I don't know if I'll ever become truly strong, she confessed. And why does getting stronger matter so much to you? He asked lazily. The Branch family would probably sacrifice their life to protect you from harm anyways. Hinata resisted a glare and then deflated. My father thinks I'm weak and I want to show him that I'm not, she replied quietly, unaware of Sasuke's surprise. I want to show him that I'm capable to leading my clan one day. But, he spurred her on, listening intently. I'm nothing compared to my older cousin, he said, holding back her tears. Neji's the strongest the Hyuga clan has ever seen and he's only a year older. How can I ever reach his level? I'm the eldest of the main branch, but sometimes it feels I was born in the wrong family. Sasuke stared at her as she wiped her eyes, a horrid empathy pervading his senses. The expectation of greatness, the validation from a father, the burden of reputation of an elite, and a familial prodigy they aspired to surpass. In that minuscule moment, Sasuke realized that he and Hinata were more alike than anyone could imagine. He faced her fully, a newfound realization dawning on him. My brother Itachi was a genius too, Sasuke murmured, spitting the word out like it was poison. He wondered why he was even talking to her about personal matters he never disclosed to others. Hinata met his stormy eyes. I thought it was impossible to be better than him. My father ignored me, even when I tried hard to show him my strength. Fill your heart with hate if you ever want to take revenge, the words rang in his mind. But I vow to get stronger than him. I will avenge my clan. I don't know. If I can do it and I will, you can too, Hinata. Hinata took in his words, shock coloring her face. Was Sasuke actually nice to her? Her eyes drifted downwards. She knew the rumors that it was Sasuke's brother who slaughtered his own family. The incident sent shock waved through the village and threw the Hyuga clan into a state of bewilderment. The massacre of an elite clan put them all on guard, and the situation further justifying the need for the cursed seal on the branch families. Hinata felt a pang of sympathy to think Sasuke had to endure all that at a young age, and she smiled at the resilience he showed. We both will, she promised, giving his a small smile. Right. Sasuke's head turned to her and the edge of his mouth twitched upwards, an oddly genuine smile resting on his face. It was the first time Hinata saw it. Why you should smile more, she said after a pause, it looks nice. Sasuke's immediately disappeared as he frowned, earning a small giggle from her. He didn't mind her comment at all, secretly liking the sound of Hinata's laugh. Days flew by, mission after mission. Since their promise by the lake, Sasuke couldn't help but notice Hinata more. Her silent insistence to train when he wanted to rest. She practiced taijutsu diligently at the crack of dawn, reflecting his own strict routine of training as soon as the day began while Naruto was still asleep. Sasuke sparred with her once, shocked to face her aggressive strikes, one that rendered his arm useless. The gentle fist, Hinata told him, blocked chakra points. Sasuke wondered she could disable the Sharingan if she struck him on the face. He shivered inwardly, thankful that she wasn't an enemy. Sasuke would have enjoyed their sparring sessions if it were not for Naruto joining in, destroying the pleasant moments with his loudness. Perhaps it was the fact he and Hinata were brought up in clan with ocular Kekkei Genkais. When Hinata used her Byakugan to assess the danger in their surrounding, he inwardly marveled and realized that it was probably the same feeling when people saw his Sharingan copying their hard-learned jutsus instantly. It's not fair that I'm the only one without a Kekkei Genkai, Naruto had complained during a training session. Sasuke raced up a tree, aiming several kunais at targets on other trees. The daggers hit every target perfectly. Naruto and Hinata were sparring with each other. They swapped their styles, Naruto now taking on a defensive stance while Hinata took an offensive approach. After hurling strikes that Naruto successfully dodged, her Byakugan saw an opening, sliding her legs to the left, she jabbed him on the side, causing him to fall onto his bottom. Sasuke ignored him, but from his peripheral vision he saw Hinata whisper something to him. Naruto grinned at her, giving a small nod as he bounced up. Sasuke didn't know what she said to him, but whatever it was, Naruto never complained again about their inherited abilities. Team 7 rose the ranks, quickly making a name for themselves as the rookie genins to have ever completed the most missions. Hinata, the tracker who could spot an ambush lying in wait for them, and her formidable gentle fist shutting down foes with mere touches. Sasuke, his Sharingan making enemies think thrice before attacking, and Naruto, the genin with inconceivable amount of chakra that surprised even experienced shinobis. Hinata, wanna get some ramen with me? Naruto offered, though his glare was fixated on Sasuke. Oh, of course, she answered, her pale skin heated to a dark shade of beetroot. Sasuke, would you like to join? Nah, I just invited you. Naruto exclaimed, grabbing her hand. Hinata swore she would have fainted on the hard ground if Naruto wasn't pulling her alongside him. She held his hand tightly as they meandered past groups of people. Sasuke usually didn't care. The idiot always ate ramen for breakfast, lunch and dinner. It was something else annoyed him, twisting in the pit of his stomach as he watched Naruto take Hinata with him through the street. His eyes lingered where their hands connected together. He wanted to hold her hand like that. The way Hinata blushed like a tomato whenever Naruto opened his annoying mouth irked Sasuke. His ears honed in how she quietly cheered him on during missions, irritated that she didn't say his name too. It was a stupid feeling really, since he always had girls screaming his name in the streets. At first Sasuke didn't mind since he knew he pushed her kindness away with his abrupt answers. But deep down he wanted her to take care of him like that too. There was one thing that comforted him. Sasuke secretly felt a twinge of relief about his teammates' obliviousness. It was obvious that Naruto saw Hinata's kindness as a token of friendship. Nothing more. Naruto was still crushing over the Haruno girl. The very same one that irked Sasuke to no end. In fact, Sasuke arrived to the conclusion that she was just as annoying as the dope. One would have deducted that if a girl repeatedly smacked you in the face, she probably didn't like you. But not Naruto. Sakura threw several punches, even chased him with a kunai whenever he tried to flirt. She was berserk when Naruto, wistfully, asked Sakura out on a date while Sasuke was standing there. Hinata glanced away awkwardly, shuffling her feet as she tried to hide her dismay. Sasuke surmised that Naruto Uzumaki was a bigger idiot than he presumed. But that didn't hinder Hinata's affections, and Sasuke didn't understand why. He hated it. Scratch that, he despised feeling like one of his fangirls. Sasuke just felt protective over Hinata. Yes, that had to be why he was having these troublesome thoughts. They were a team, and after the whole Zabuza ordeal, Sasuke had to admit, he did care about his team, more than he let on. When Haku attacked Naruto, he stepped in front of him, his limbs acting before his mind processed what happened. He wasn't a heartless monster like Itachi. It was a new day in Naruto. Sasuke and Hinata received specific instructions to meet by the bridge at 6 a.m. promptly. After waiting for 2 hours, Team 7's tardy sensei finally showed up. Kakashi said a cheerful greeting to an enraged Naruto, a tired Sasuke who expected his sensei to show up late as usual, and an agitated Hinata who hid her annoyance at his excuse. I know this is sudden, but I recommended you three for the Chunin exams, Kakashi announced, piquing the interest of Team 7. These are the application forms. Chunin exams. Naruto cried. His rage over Kakashi's lateness disappeared as he jumped in for a hug, one Kakashi wasn't impressed with, pushing the boy away. Sasuke's eyes lingered on Hinata a little longer. He didn't miss the way she matched Naruto's grin. Or the way she wished him luck. Or rosy blush on her cheeks when Naruto said the same to her. It was like she forgot he was standing there too. If you don't think you're ready, there's always next year, Kakashi added, handing them the papers. If you want to take part, then complete the forms and come to room 301 at the academy next week. The deadline is 3 p.m. I can't wait to show Sakura how strong I've become. Naruto cried, pumping his fist in the air. Hinata's gaze fell, her face scrunched in disappointment. Sasuke smirked at the prospect of beating Naruto to a pulp in front of the entire village. Bring it on, he said, a smirk plastered on his face. The first exam, the Hyuga compound. Hinata walked towards the family's capacious dojo, motivation growing weaker with each step on the mahogany floorboards. The soft thuds echoed in the quiet vastness of the garden. Natsu told her that her father, to her surprise, wasn't in the office today and was, to her surprise, teaching Hanabi personally. It shouldn't be a shock, but Hinata couldn't believe that her father was already giving Hanabi so much attention to her training. At this rate, Hanabi would become a top-ranked academy student just like Neji was. Hinata couldn't remember him giving her that kind of attention when she was Hanabi's age. He tossed her aside like an old rag, leaving her to Kurenhai's care. It made sense though, since her father made it very clear that Hanabi was to be the new heir of the Hyuga clan. Not her. Seeing the happiness on Hanabi's face as the new alleviated the strangling pain Hinata felt at the loss of her title. As she reached the entrance, Hinata's thudding heart plummeted to her stomach in one quick drop. Father, may I speak to you? Hinata asked tentatively. Hanabi looked over to her sister, a smile on her face. Hiyashi stepped out of the dojo, giving Hanabi a curt nod. Understanding the gesture, Hanabi's eyes turned away from her sister and practiced her kicks again. Hinata was caught off guard by her loud cries as she threw a flurry of well-aimed kicks. The Chunin exams are starting, she said, unable to look up to her father. I wondered if you think I should compete. For someone of your ability, it would be futile to consider it this year. Hinata's head flicked up at the harshness. his eyes wide in dismay. She expected a balanced evaluation from her father, but the brutal reply left her speechless. Hiyashi was told of his daughter's progress on each mission. It was routine to receive a monthly report from Kakashi Hatake about his daughter's development on the field. He saw her hesitancy dwindle when she returned after a task, a spring in her step that was otherwise a slow shuffle. With teammates like Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, it was expected. The loudmouth outcast and the popular boy from the reputable Uchiha clan. Though she was slowly breaking out of her metal shell of meekness, Hiyashi believed Hinata was wholly unprepared from the brutal reality of the shinobi life. Unlike Hanabi, Hinata lacked the attribute that made an effective shinobi, ruthlessness. A quality even the branch member Neji Hyuga possessed perfectly. What do you mean? Neji will be competing in the Chunin exams as well, and we all know that you do not stand a chance against him. But I've become stronger. You will never be strong enough to beat Neji. Think of the shame we will have to endure when a branch member defeats the oldest of the main family in front of the entire village. Alright. Hinata's eyes fell to her feet, her confidence blasted into smithereens. She wanted to fight her case, to spit out that she had learned more techniques, that she had better grasp on chakra control that Kakashi-sensei always praised her for. She was certain she'd do well with Naruto and Sasuke by her side, but all she could utter was a robotic response. I understand, father. You will have better odds in next year's Chunin exams. The Leaf Village was busier than normal. Civilians watched with curious eyes as groups of foreign shinobis walked past in groups of 3, their gait strong and arrogant smirks. Their village insignia gleamed proudly on the metal plates of their bands, the villages hidden in the mist, sand, cloud, stone and more. There were village symbols none one had ever seen before. The Sound Village was apparently a new hidden settlement with a small army of ninjas. They all strolled through the streets, sizing up their competition and enjoying the little free time they had until the first trial commenced. It was time to display the strength of their village and the might of their shinobis to the world. Naruto couldn't be more excited about the exams. Finding Sakura and asking about her participation was number 1 on his list. He rubbed the pounding bruise on the back of his head, wincing at the pain. His attempt at asking Sakura out on a date failed again, but that was probably because it was a bad time. They were going to be competing against each other in the exams, so Naruto didn't mind her overzealous reaction. He'd try asking her again after the Chunin exams were over. To make matters worse, Konohamaru interrupted, crawling nearby disguised as a cube-shaped rock. His young disciple thought she was his girlfriend, much to his delight. Sakura wasn't too pleased with the deduction, unleashing hell on the poor boy too. Naruto couldn't understand her abhorrence of the idea of him being her boyfriend. Hinata never reacted like that around him. A frown fixed on his expression as he lowered his hand. That wasn't what bothered him. It was the ninjas from the hidden sand village. The boy with purple tribal marking on his face, the girl who was nonplussed about his threats towards them, and most of all, the quiet redhead that the two seemed deathly afraid of, Gaara of the desert. What kind of nickname was that anyways? They were obviously experienced shinobis, carrying weapons Naruto had never seen before. And Sasuke stopped the rising confrontation with a tiny rock. Literally. And they didn't even bother asking what his name was, just Sasuke's. Sasuke this, Sasuke that. When he beats Sasuke in the exams, then everyone will know his name. Naruto gritted his teeth. How could Sasuke be cool all the time? It infuriated him how his rival always outdid him. His imagination let loose as he imagined winning the final match against Sasuke and being awarded with a green flak jacket. All his classmates throwing him in the air in celebration while the villagers cheering his name. Naruto promised quietly he would make that a reality one day. Being Chunin was another step closer to his dream to become Hokage, and he wouldn't let anyone stand in the way. A patch of dark blue trudging opposite him caught his eye, bringing him out of his thoughts. A grin appeared on his face as he waved his hand to catch her attention. Hinata. The Hyuga stopped at the call of her name, her hand clutching the piece of paper in her pocket. It's nearly 3 o'clock. I'm heading to the academy to give my form, he cried gleefully. Wanna come with me? Hinata's gaze drifted downwards. Naruto observed her deflated posture, the emptiness in her eyes causing his eyebrows to knit together in concern. What wrong? I don't think I'll be taking part in the Chunin exams. Why not? Naruto exclaimed, taken aback by her confession. I don't think I'm good enough yet. That's not a reason to not to compete. My cousin Neji is participating and he's a Hyuga genius. I don't know if I even have a chance. Naruto scrunched his face in distaste, his eyes becoming fox-like slits. It was no surprise to hear she was scared of the competition too. There were ninjas much older than them competing in the exams. Some that looked like it wasn't their first time. Their years of experience was no doubt an advantage compared to their months of missions as rookie genins, even if they did pass an S-ranked mission by accident. It was terrifying, but Naruto would never admit that out loud. Life taught him that there was no point of dwelling on negativity. How will you know your true strength if you don't take the risk to find out? Hinata's eyes lifted to meet his confident sapphire glint. She twiddled her index finger together, nervousness slowly engulfing her. Do why you think I've gotten stronger? Yeah, when we spar, I'm amazed how good you are at taijutsu and your Byakugan is an awesome Kekkei Genkai. The competition won't know what hit them. Kumaon-mi and Sasuke are entering, it'll be really weird without you. Why you're right, she said, her tone conveying utmost gratitude. Thank you and Naruto. Let's head there before it's too late. She pulled out the paper from her pocket and uncurled it the form days earlier. She smiled at Naruto, grateful at the courage she discovered thanks to him. On the way to the academy, Hinata listened to Naruto rant about how he would beat Sasuke in finals, sweat dropping at the typical diatribe. When Hinata and Naruto arrived, there was a commotion in the corridor. Sasuke was already there, his arms crossed and looking dangerously annoyed. Along with other shinobis they hadn't met, Sakura, Kiba and Shino were there too. Naruto and Hinata swapped skeptical looks as they joined Sasuke. That's because this is the second floor, Sakura announced, pointing to the number on the door. So you noticed the genjutsu? One of the boys that blocked the entrance said. Damn right we did, Kiba cheered, Akamaru barking in agreement. To be accurate, it was Sakura who detected the illusion, certainly thanks to Kurenhai-sensei's rigorous mental exercises in the art of genjutsu. I as well suspected. We get it, Shino. Kiba and Sasuke said automatically, cutting Shino off from his analytical lecture. The genjutsu dispersed, much to the relief of the room of impatient genins. The door number was in fact 201. Sakura saw the trick a mile away. Kurenai-sensei's training not only helped Sakura perform genjutsu, but how to use chakra to figure out if you're trapped in one too. And Sakura was confident that she could have well released everyone from it too, but it was much more satisfying seeing everyone's confusion at her declaration. They would know not to underestimate her in the Chunin exams. Wow! Sakura, you're amazing! Naruto cried. His enthusiasm flattened as she took no notice of his compliment. Good job, Sakura, Sasuke said, impressed by her astuteness. Sakura blushed wildly. Had Sasuke acknowledged her smartness? Did he actually compliment her for real? She jumped up in joy. Her inner self punched in success, a step closer to Sasuke finally accepting her. This was the first he ever said something nice to her. As Naruto burned with jealousy, Sasuke regretted his comment. Honestly, Hinata couldn't fathom why there was a huge rivalry between the two. Hinata wondered how much worse the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke would have been if Sakura was on Team 7 instead of her. Would Naruto hate Sasuke ever more? Would Sasuke even care? Probably not. The vexed Uchiha watched Sakura squeal like a pig nonstop. A slim genin donning an hideous green jumpsuit stopped the tortuous noise that grated his eardrums. I am Rock Lee and you're Sakura, right? Huh. Please be my girlfriend. I vow to protect you with my life. His eyes twinkled at her, hoping he'd be charmed with his declaration. Definitely not, Sakura muttered, stepping away from the lanky boy. Weirdo. Naruto empathized with the Lee, giving him a pat on the back as he drooped at the rejection. He too was enchanted by Sakura's prettiness, but Sakura was hard to impress, but he'd never give up. Hinata chuckled at the scene, but stopped as Neji made his way over to them, a brunette following him. His attention wasn't directed at her, however. She felt a cool relief at that. Hey you, what's your name? He asked, his tone measured with interest. You're a rookie, aren't you? Sasuke examined the older boy beckoning him. His eyes were just like Hinata's, a Hyuga no doubt, Sasuke deduced. He gave the Hyuga a nonchalant glance, his hands tucked in his pockets. I'm not obliged to answer. What's that? Hinata's her mouth gaped open at Sasuke's rudeness. Neji wasn't someone you'd want as an enemy. His sturdy gaze moved over to her and Hinata didn't know why she suddenly stared at the floor. Hello, brother Neji. Sasuke eyes narrowed, eyes swiveling around to Hinata in mild surprise. Naruto's eyes darted to the older boy. That was the Neji that was supposedly super strong. Neji's pale eyes matched Hinata's, but there was a coldness poorly hidden in his that Hinata didn't possess. He didn't respond to her, simply staring at her with a controlled expression on his face. You with the attitude, Lee called out. My name is Rock Lee, and you are Sasuke Uchiha, correct? I challenge you to a fight. Tenten sighed, shaking her head as Neji's glare became more pronounced. You've heard the Uchiha clan, and yet you're challenging me. According to the rules, we cannot enter battle with other genin until the exams have commenced. Shino interrupted. You'll get your fight, but not now. Guys, Kameon, let's go, Naruto exclaimed, starting to get bored with the delay and wildly irritated by the confrontation that left him out of the loop. Again, it was Sasuke they wanted to fight, not him. I wonder if Shikamaru, Ino and Choji are participating too, Kiba added as he continued down the corridor. He smirked. This is gonna be fun, at least for those good enough to make the cut, right Sasuke? Sakura shot her teammate a glare as Sasuke matched his smirk. Careful Kiba, you don't get overconfident. Yeah, just you wait and find out how hard we've trained. Naruto cried. We weren't sat around, picking daises, you know. Naruto pretended he flower picking mission never happened, his competitive streak taking center stage. Well, neither were we. I think it'll be nice to see everyone again, Hinata chimed in, attempting to quell the animosity. The rookie 9, Shino muttered in thought, walking behind the group. That means Ino will be there. Sakura groaned, not so subtly moving closer to Sasuke's arm. I'm walking, Sakura, no need to pull, he said, his tone exasperated. No cheating. That wasn't the rule of the test strangely. It was not to get caught cheating. To add to the strangeness, it was not to get caught 3 times. Most quickly understood the real purpose of the test, the ability to extract information without detection. A crucial skill for intelligence-based missions. As the time ticked by, the room became emptier as genins were disqualified for being caught cheating for the 3rd time. Number 10, you fail. Sakura Haruno scribbled her answers on the paper, ignoring the yells in the background. Her studying paid off as usual. Although the questions were much harder than she expected, after some deliberation she'd find the answer somewhere in her mind. Her eyes flitted to her teammates, a smile on her lips. She knew she could count on them. Shino's bug flew around, relaying the answers to him. Shino's smartness almost matched hers. Akamaru looked around, helping Kiba uncover the answers his clueless mind didn't know. Kiba was a less annoying version of Naruto, one Sakura could deal with and not be tempted to sling a punch at his face. They would ace the exam for sure. She looked at the blonde that crossed her mind. He was seated on the row in front of her. Pity filled her as she observed his body quaking in confusion. That pity quickly vanished as Sakura narrowed her eyes. If Naruto failed, then Sasuke would fail too. Time was running out, and by the look of his glaringly blank paper, Naruto had zero idea. Just like back at the academy, Naruto scored the worst in the class. Sakura exhaled with annoyance, turning back to her paper and rereading her answers. She couldn't become distracted by angry thoughts of the dumb genin or her future boyfriend. A sudden force shot through her from behind, forcing her body forwards over the desk. A smirk appeared on her lips, pushing herself back into a sitting position. "Don't mind me hanging out in your soul for a bit, Sakura," Ino said gleefully, looking at Sakura's answers with the pinket's body she stole. Time to memorize the answers. Numbers 23 and 59, "You fail," the invigilator announced as more Guinans left the room. Number 41, "Fail." Hinata was all too aware of the clock. She was stumped on most of the questions. They were too advanced for a genin entrance exam, she was sure of it. Enlarged veins protruded from her temples, giving her a perfect vision of almost everyone's answers in the room. An older boy sat a few feet away, had answers all written in a matter of minutes, and was now leaning back. He looked too relaxed. Hinata pursed her lips suspiciously, reading his answers and copying them on her paper. She was ashamed to be cheating, but the last question was impossible, and this was the only way she could finish the test. Beside her, Naruto gripped the side of his head with one hand and gripped the pen tightly in the other. "Naruto, you can copy my answers," Hinata whispered, moving her paper discreetly closer to him. Azure eyes widened at what she was insinuating. A reluctant smile stretched on his face. "Thanks, but I can't risk getting caught," he whispered back, though appreciating her offer of help. Hinata pulled back her test paper at his response. Naruto swiftly regretted his words as his eyes stared at the questions again. Tick. 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 5 minutes left. Number 72 and 88. "Fail." "No way," the genin protested, only to be promptly defenestrated by a Chunin invigilator. Naruto ruffled his hair, frying his brain nerves as he read the questions for the 100th time, as if he could magically conjure the answer out of thin air if he willed it hard enough. Decipher the code in the text above. Write down the hidden message and explain whether or not it is an effective form of encryption. He didn't know. He screamed internally for the umpteenth time. Number 62. "Fail." Tick. Tick. Line B in the diagram indicates the trajectory of a shuriken thrown at enemy C by ninja A seated atop a 3-7 meters tall. Describe and formulate the trajectory required if C were positioned at point D, E and F. Also predict the farthest possible range of the shuriken and explain your answer. He didn't know. Beads of sweat trailed down his face and soaked through the test paper. Tick. Numbers 98, 45 and 33. "Fail." Naruto side-eyed Hinata's paper, his eyebrows shooting to his hairline. She completed all her answers to all 10 questions. He felt his heart drop into the pit of his stomach as his eyes swiveled back to his horribly blank paper. Not only was he letting Hinata down, but he didn't want to even think about Sasuke's reaction if they failed their chance at becoming Chunin, all because he couldn't answer a bunch of lousy questions. "Time's up," Ibiki announced, a smugness-etched scarred face at the sight of frightful genins. Naruto's head snapped up, cold fear racing through his body. The forest of death. Hinata rubbed healing ointment on Naruto's scratches, wrapping a gargantuan leaf around it as a bandage. Thankfully he was healing quickly. Her eyes trailed to Sasuke, his wounds barely scabbing over, no sign of improvement. The mark Orochimaru gave him refused to fade, an ugly blemish branding the skin between his neck and shoulder. He and Naruto laid unconscious beside of her, their bodies marred with dry blood and slashes that made her heart quiver. Guilt was like a boulder on her chest as she sat between her two friends, her hands clasped together in pointless hope. If her Byakugan avoided Orochimaru's path, they wouldn't be in this mess. No team and no scrolls. It was her fault and Hinata chastised herself for it. She was the tracker. A simple job. Lead the way and avoid groups that had the same scroll as them. The tasks delegated to Sasuke and Naruto were also simple. They had the job of fighting off an ambush. With only 3 days to finish the mission, if the forest teeming with colossal beasts and creepy crawlies wasn't enough, there were teams of genins out there for blood and killing wasn't against the rules. They had a simple plan that was working perfectly, until Orochimaru ambushed them. Naruto and Sasuke paid the price for her error. There was no point dwelling on the fact, pushing away the accusing thoughts. The mossy cave was only a temporary haven. Hinata was well aware other teams would soon find them and it was her responsibility to protect Sasuke and Naruto. Her Byakugan still activated, Hinata shot up, her eyes darting to the entrance of the cave. She saw the sound ninjas hiding behind the trees a few feet away. They had been crouched there for a while, spying on them unaware that she was watching them too with the Byakugan. There were 3. A large masked man, the shorter one, and the girl. Waiting like predators watching their preys. Sounds ninjas tasked with a job from Orochimaru. You can do this, she whispered, giving herself motivation that Naruto normally did. It didn't feel the same without his exuberance. Hinata closed her eyes, steadying her nerves. She had to for the sake of her team. Her mind drifted back to how Naruto saved her and Sasuke from Orochimaru's killer intent. How even after he was eaten, he ripped out of the snake and fought to save them. Courage amplified within her as she took her first steps outside the cave. The all-seeing, all-white eye, Dosu said, his fright thinly concealed, we'll have to be careful around her. Look at her eyes, Ino stammered, I've never seen Hinata look so scary. Team 10 hid behind the bushes, peering through the gaps in the leaves. They didn't exactly decide to waste time watching another battle secretly, but when Choji discovered Hinata alone with a seemingly dead Sasuke and sleeping Naruto, they just had to investigate what had happened. Ino gasped as Hinata rushed at Kin, his strikes vicious and sharp. The female sound ninja bounced up, throwing a needle at Hinata, which she deflected with her protective 8 trigrams. Shikamaru watched in astonishment as Hinata dodged and punched from Zaku. She's a Hyuga alright, Shikamaru muttered, I wouldn't wanna fight them. Choji flinched as Zaku landed a hit on Hinata, flinging her body into the air. Do you think she can handle them? Choji asked. Should we help her, Ino? Why are you asking me? Sweat dripped down her forehead as she watched Hinata weakly stand up. She remembered the quiet girl who always sat at the back of the class. Hinata Hyuga was the only girl Ino had no qualms with. Hinata kept to herself. Come to think of it, Ino couldn't remember if she had ever talked to her even though they were in the same class. Let's not be too hasty, Shikamaru said, an analytical look in his eyes observing the sound ninjas. There's no guarantee we can beat them. We might be digging our own graves if we jump in the fight. As Zaku and Kin prepared another attack, another figure entered the battle, swiftly deflecting the cluster of needles combined with Zaku's airwaves. Long hair and colorless eyes that matched Hinata. They fought side by side, their attacks almost identical, but Neji's sheer power and tactics impressed Dosu far more than expected. In fact, Dosu took a step back from the fight, observing the new Hyuga's style. Thank you, cousin Neji. Hinata cried, wiping the trail of blood that dripped from her nose. This doesn't change anything, Neji stated, the same stony look on his face. Hinata's smile shrunk instantly. Ino's jaw fell open and she choked the shocked gasp that almost shot out. She turned to Shikamaru, his voice a low hiss. Hinata and that super strong guy are related. If you weren't too busy gawking at Sasuke's body the whole time, you'd have known they have the same eyes. Choji pulled out a crisp packet from his pocket. Yeah, even I knew that. Choji, are you seriously eating at a time like this? It's not a freaking show. But I'm hungry, he grumbled. Eat quietly, Choji. We can't risk getting caught, Shikamaru scolded. A sudden explosion rocked the ground. Ino fell over Choji, who squashed Shikamaru. Sasuke woke up in an aura of violet flames, a sinister aura emitting from him. The battle seemingly paused at his entrance, afraid of the unexpected appearance. Hinata, though she thought she'd feel happy, was in fact just as afraid as the enemy. What happened to Sasuke? He approached her, and though he had the same eyes, the black marks on his skin were a sign he wasn't back to his old self. He stalked his way to the battlefield, halting as he reached Hinata. Who did this to you? Sasuke asked, his hand cupping her face. His thumb brushed over the ugly purple bruise near her eye. Ino balled her fists so tight that her knuckles were white mountains. Sasuke and Hinata, when the hell did that happen? It was already annoying that she competed against Sakura for the Uchiha's affection, but now she had another rival. Choji shuffled away from Ino, gulping at the waves of rage emanating from her. Shikamaru sighed. He'd never understand the female romantic obsession with the boy. He was more bothered by the strange black marks sketched across Sasuke's skin, and by the looks of the astonishment on the sound ninjas' faces, so were they. Hinata winced at Sasuke's unexpected touch. His cold fingers didn't feel quite right on her face. In response, she flicked her eyes to the sound ninjas. Sasuke followed her gaze and he nodded in understanding, his hand slipping of the edge of her face. She gasped in horror as black marks streaked over Sasuke's entire body, wrapping around his like a snake. I can handle this alone, Sasuke. Go back to sleep, Neji said, expertly hiding the uneasiness he felt at the odd markings on the younger boy. Sasuke walked past him without a word, but this wasn't his nonchalant attitude. An ominous aura emitted from him as he stalked towards Zaku. The audacity the bastard had for hurting his teammate while she was alone, to hurt Hinata while he was there. The image of her bruised skin was branded in his mind, and the measured control he possessed was non-existent. Rage fused with red-hot satisfaction at his desperate begging. This wasn't the Sasuke she knew. He wasn't quickly finishing off his opponents, he was taking delight in torturing them. He was cruel. Like Orochimaru, Hinata was sure that whatever brought this change was because of the mark on near his neck. Was Orochimaru controlling him? Sasuke, stop, Hinata yelled, panic in her voice. It was please Sasuke had no intention of taking heed of. The desire for revenge was the only thing that mattered, avenging Hinata's pain. A smirk found its way on his expression and Sasuke snapped the ninja's right arm off, bright red blood spurting from the wound. A ear-piercing scream slicing the air was proof of victory. Spare him and we'll give you the heaven scroll, Dosu declared. Sasuke hesitated and Hinata took advantage of the split-second opening, hauling his arm off the crippled genin. Zaku laid on the floor, his body soaked in the pool of his own blood, mourning the loss of his limb. Sasuke's vicious glare simmered to an irritated look as she pulled him away, her hands locked around his upper arm. Though he hated that she stopped him, he enjoyed the proximity of her face to his as she looked at him worriedly with pale eyes that contrasted with his obsidian orbs. Although he wanted to tear Zaku's other arm off too, as he didn't know which limb he used to hurt Hinata, and shove a kunai up the Dosu's ass, a murderous inclination that surprised himself, the small shake of Hinata's head gave him a semblance of rationality. This was an opportunity that can't be foolishly ignored. The black marks etched on his skin receded to his surprise. Why did you do this? Hinata asked, wishing her voice didn't sound so shaky. Orochimaru ordered us to kill Sasuke, Dosu replied, we weren't told anything else. Leave the scroll there and piss off, assholes. Sasuke's glare was unabated, watching the Zaku hobble away, leaning on Kin while Dosu walked ahead with a rage barely controlled. He didn't know what Orochimaru's deal was with him, but right now he was too pissed off to care. As the cacophony of the fight quietened, Naruto roused awake. He rubbed his eyes, glancing around the empty cavern. What the heck happened? Last thing he remembered was fighting Orochimaru. Naruto stumbled out of the cave, grinning as he saw Hinata and Sasuke stood outside. His grin quickly vanished as Hinata faced him, although her smile grew bigger as she saw him awake. Hinata, you're hurt, Naruto cried, studying her with shock. His face so close hers that they were almost nose-nose. Hinata's blush concealed by the bruises on her cheeks. Naruto gritted his teeth in anger. Something inside him raged at the sight of her, something that was difficult to restrain. Why was she hurt? Why wasn't he there to help her? Guilt extinguished the ferocious emotion that stirred inside him. Do you still have that healing ointment? I used most of it on you and Sasuke. Don't worry, I'll be okay. What happened? The sound ninjas attacked, Hinata replied, and cousin Neji helped fight them off. Thanks, Sasuke said to Neji, a courtesy empty of genuine gratitude. Don't flatter yourself. I couldn't care less if you were dead. I didn't want to be deprived the chance to defeat the Hyuga's biggest disgrace, Neji stated, his words icicles that tore straight into Hinata's chest. Hey, I get we're all competing against each other, but there's no need to be a jerk to Hinata. Naruto retorted. Hinata cowered behind Naruto, Neji's stare drilling into her head. How was she supposed to fight him when she could hardly look at him? Dread drowned her hopes as she realized her father was right all along. Sasuke smirked, though his eyes were colder than Neji's disparagement. Not if I beat you first. That's rather confident coming from a clan that was wiped out by a single person. Maybe the Sharingan isn't as superior as you think, Sasuke Uchiha. Neji stressed on his clan name, a scornful grin plastered on his face. Something inside Sasuke splintered into 1,000 pieces. His body lunged at the Hyuga, but Hinata grabbed the fabric of his shirt, pulling him back before he could take a step. It seems like your team doesn't do well without you. A pathetic excuse of a Hyuga and a loudmouth with a small brain, Neji continued, staring at Hinata and Naruto. I'm gonna make you regret saying that. Naruto growled, infuriated more by Neji's taunting smirk, his eyes accepting the challenge. Next time we meet, I assure you it won't end well, for any of you. And with that, Neji disappeared into the thick, leafy canopies. We have an earth scroll now, Sasuke said, deliberately turning his back to Naruto and Hinata. Seeing Naruto with Hinata stirred a different kind of anger that still prickled the cursed mark. The sounds of footsteps grew closer to Sasuke and then stopped. Naruto stood next to Sasuke, inspecting his appearance. The Uchiha made no effort to look at the blonde. There was something odd about Sasuke, Naruto noticed. His stiff posture, his bloodied hands, and there was something in his eyes Naruto couldn't figure out. Instead of making a comment about his assumption that he knew Sasuke would brush off, Naruto glanced at the trees in the distance with a deep sigh. Back to square one, he mumbled. Looks like they didn't need our help after all, Shikamaru concluded, although there was no hint of relief in his composure. Good thing we didn't waste any chakra, now we can use it when someone comes after our butts, Choji muttered. Let's go, Ino simply said. Not jealous, are you? Shikamaru teased. Ino's death glare was the only answer he needed. I said let's go. She held a fist up threateningly, daring Shikamaru to make fun of her again. I see a group taking a break by the stream, Hinata announced, her Byakugan flaring. It looks like they have the Heaven Scroll. The three leapt from the gargantuan branches of the forest. Hinata led the way while Sasuke and Naruto were slightly behind. They reached the part of the forest where the trees were thinning. For the first time since the trial started, the refreshing sight of blue of the sky was seen, leaving behind the leafy ceiling. Amber rays of the evening sun beamed on them as they continued their run. The cool breeze was a welcoming feel after the suffocating scent of vegetation. How far, Hinata? Naruto asked. Less than a kilometer. At this pace, we'll be there in 15 minutes. Perfect, Sasuke replied, we can plan an ambush. Hinata suddenly let out a yelp, a sharp pain shooting down her leg. She collapsed in the branch, clutching her ankle. Naruto stopped and knelt beside her as Sasuke stopped, glancing down at her. Ocular jutsu takes a lot of chakra, he said, recalling the side effects of his own Sharingan. We should take a rest so you can get better. He's right, Naruto agreed, concern flashing in his cyan eyes. You've done enough, let me and Sasuke handle this now. Hinata shook her head vehemently. No, it's nearly nightfall. If we take a break then that means we only have one more day left to get the scroll, she countered, her body shaking as she heaved herself back up. We can't afford to lose more time and I'm the best tracker out of the three of us. Sasuke's lips pressed together in a frown. If you don't have the strength to fight then you'll be a liability. Hinata's short locks brushed across her cheeks as she shook her head again. I've been training with my Byakugan since I could walk, it doesn't take much chakra, she said confidently. Honestly, running takes more energy than the Byakugan. If that's the case, Naruto crouched in front of her, then I'll carry you. What? Out of me and Sasuke, I'm the one who got my full strength back, no offense. None taken, Sasuke said in his usual nonchalance. Inwardly, however, he was envious of how well Naruto recovered compared to him. What was his secret? I'll carry you on my back so you can use your Byakugan and tell me which direction to go. Naruto cried, proud of his clever idea. We won't be wasting any time and you'll be getting a good rest too. Hinata gave a small nod, red streaks coloring her cheeks as she wrapped her arms around Naruto. She bit back a squeal of surprise as he hoisted her on her back, his hands below her upper leg. She felt her vision dip in and out of darkness, leaning her entire weight on Naruto's back. This isn't the time to faint. She scolded herself. Comfortable? Naruto asked, looking at her sideways. Why yes, she said quietly, grateful he couldn't see how bright her face burned red. Thank you. As much as Sasuke despised it, Naruto was right. He was still lethargic from the curse mark's power no matter how hard he pretended to act unaffected. His breathing was heavier and his legs were protesting under his weight, pleading for a long sleep. Sasuke didn't dare use his Sharingan. He could feel his energy seeping through him, dispersing into the cool air of the forest. Sasuke absent-mindedly rubbed the curse mark, flinching at the throbbing pain. Hey, try to keep up with us, Naruto joked as they continued jumping branch to branch. The Uchiha shot a glare behind the blonde's head at the jest, too mentally exhausted to formulate a snarky comeback. Jealousy spun like a tornado inside Sasuke even though he agreed this was the best course of action to take if they were to complete the mission on time. As they continued their journey to the stream, Sasuke miserably failed to ignore the closeness of his teammates. Hinata's blush was long gone as she held tightly to Naruto. Aside from shouting updates, the two were engrossed in their own conversations. He didn't like being the odd one out, especially if Hinata was there. Sasuke pondered about Hinata, no longer surprised when his thoughts drifted to the Hyuga. Why did he like it when she held his arm? A simple touch that other girls had done many times before her. Why did he listen to her wordless request to stop? Why was he prepared to sacrifice himself when Orochimaru attacked them? Was it perhaps because Hinata understood his silence, the unspoken words that were stuck in his mind? Onyx's eyes darkened as he reined in the ugly, green-eyed monster. He could not allow the inexplicable feelings he had for Hinata to jeopardize the mission. What exactly was it he felt for her? Love. Sasuke didn't believe in love. He loved Itachi and he ended up damning him to a life of living hell. Love was what the girls in his class claimed they felt for him. That so-called love was nothing but a deranged obsession over superficial things. Sasuke didn't bother to acknowledge the insipid declarations. The way they batted their eyes at him was repulsive, stupid attempts to flirt with him. The female attention would naturally swing towards good looks because that's how shallow those girls were. Hinata's quiet demeanor was comfortable, and her gentle voice had the power to hush the demons that haunted him. There was a tranquility Sasuke felt whenever she was around him, a calmness that reminded him of his mother's caring personality. An image of Makoto Uchiha flashed in his mind, her kind smile, and dark bluish hair he inherited from her. Sasuke clenched his jaw tightly, refusing the tears' entry to his waterline of his eyes. There was no point feeling sad when he promised to avenge her death. A loud scream rippled in the air. Hinata's arms gripped tighter around Naruto's shoulders, wordlessly stopping him in his tracks. Her Byakugan scanned the environment below. What the hell was that sound? Naruto asked, his voice scruffy with worry. Does it really matter? We need to get a move on, Sasuke said. Geez Sasuke, aren't you even a little bit curious? No, he replied automatically. Hinata. There's girl over there, she's being attacked. By who? Naruto exclaimed. A bear. Sasuke closed his eyes and scoffed. A freaking bear. You gotta be kidding me. I think we should help her, she's all alone. Sasuke immediately shook his head. And by we you mean me, right? Please. Naruto and I can't do much, and I feel really bad if we left her. Sasuke's mind was firmly set on an irrevocable refusal, but Hinata's pleading eyes made him rethink his decision. Damn it. Fine, I'll make it quick. A hollow-cheeked genin raced through the leaves, her lungs begging for air. A scream tore from her throat as she tried to outrun the beast. Karen Uzumaki realized it was futile to shout her team's names. They had never liked her in the first place, not an outcast like her. Tears flowed like rivers from her bright eyes, blurring her vision. The bear roared louder, its claws sharper than any weapon she possessed in her tiny pocket. She squeezed her eyes shut, gripping the earth scroll tighter. She desperately sought out a chakra signature of anyone nearby. Her heart leapt with hope as she sensed 3 signatures close by. The heavy thuds of the bear grew louder and louder until a sharp twinge of pain slashed her shoulder. Karen screamed again, her distress echoing off the trees. She collapsed, her legs too weak to continue the arduous escape. Her glasses fell off, landing on a patch of grass out of her reach as the earth scroll rolled away. The blood trailing down her arm was as red as her hair. With a sniffle, Karen stared at her furry assailant, his monstrous paw raised above her, thick saliva dripping on her, the viscous texture splashing against her sweaty skin. Karen bowed her head, accepting her fate with one final sob. This was her end. Alone, unwanted and unloved. She waited for the strike, the agony of death, the darkness to cloud her sight. But nothing came, except the wailing whine of the bear, sounds of its footsteps receding. She scrambled onto her knees, picking up her glasses. She dared to take a peek and saw a shuriken embedded in the grass near her feet. Karen looked at her savior, replacing her initial gratitude. She stood up and ran towards him, wrapping her arms around him. Sasuke didn't know how to react at first, unsettled by the sudden action from the foreign girl. He felt her sob on his shoulder, growing more uncomfortable as Naruto and Hinata watched with surprise. He extricated his body away, but her grip around him was bizarrely strong for someone so thin and beaten up. With an exasperated sigh, he yanked her arms off him, insulted by her affection. However, Sasuke's glare was short-lived once he saw the crazed glaze in her eyes, red like the Sharingan, but as vibrant as the sun that was setting on the horizon. Sorry, she blurted shyly. Of course he'd be annoyed. Karen internally castigated herself for her thoughtless action. The bear's saliva on her reeked of a horrid odor, along with the sweat, blood and dirt. It wasn't her fault she was filthy, she didn't have a chance to wash herself since the trial began. Her teammates always made her the lookout any time they rested, and though Karen loathed the unfairness of it all, she knew it was part and parcel of being an Uzumaki. No one cared about her plight. But this boy from the hidden leaf did. He stepped in, saved her, protected her from harm's way. A blush the same color as her hair grew on her cheeks. Thanks for saving me, Sasuke shrugged, somewhat unsettled by the overzealous look in her eyes. Quote. You should thank Hinata. Hinata. Sasuke spotted a blue scroll from the corner of his eye, a look of displeasure crossing his face. So she had an earth scroll too. It would have made their task much easier if this pathetic kunoichi had the heaven scroll they needed. A question pulled Karen's attention away from the dark-haired boy. Hey, are you okay? Naruto asked. The identical symbols on their forehead protectors told her they were a team from the hidden leaf. A team that had survived so far. Karen noticed he carried an injured girl on his back. That must be Hinata. It was nice to know that there were some who cared about their teammate, Karen thought ruefully. Now that the threat of imminent death passed, Karen examined the team with a calm mind. It was a habit. Growing up knowing you were an outsider made her apprehensive. The blonde had a bright chakra, brightest one she had ever sensed. It was like a million's rays of sunshine, blinding and warm. But there was something strange about his chakra. His chakra was uneven, and felt agitating. A discordance as it crackled, as if something was ruining the harmony of the chakra. And her handsome savior was the most mysterious. Dark violet flames muddled with black flecks, the two distinct auras battling each other for dominance. The girl's aura was almost the complete opposite, lavender-colored innocuous wisps. Gentle yet powerful, and unlike the others, her aura was controlled, swirling in a precise fashion that amazed Karen. She gave a slow nod, adjusting her glasses to observe Hinata's weary appearance. You're hurt, aren't you? A little. I can help you with your injuries, if you want. Really? Bite me, Karen offered, sticking out her arm. What? Hinata cried, mortified by the suggestion. Sasuke blinked, wondering if her heard correctly. I guess it's the best way I can say thank you. Hinata's bumps and bruises paled in comparison to Karen's colorful contusions. There were dozens of bite marks across the entire length of her arm, some clearly recent. Are you sure? Naruto asked, equally disgusted. He couldn't look at her battered and bloody arm longer than a second. I don't like it, she admitted, self-conscious of the permanent scars, but it's the least I can do to help you after you saved me. Hinata shook her head. It's okay, I know I look hurt, but I feel much better. Really? I guess I don't have to carry you anymore. Naruto exclaimed, relieved that Hinata's strength finally returned. He hated seeing her hurt. Hinata didn't like the idea of separating, but she also didn't want Karen to feel bad about her declining. To prove her point, she reluctantly released her hold around Naruto's shoulders as he eased her off. Hinata straightened her posture, giving a half-hearted smile. You're from the village hidden in the grass, Sasuke said curiously. Where's your team? I was supposed to protect this scroll while they find a heaven scroll, she replied, picking up the earth scroll she dropped earlier. What's your name? Naruto piped in. I'm Karen, she said, deliberately not mentioning her clan name. That moody guy is Sasuke, he introduced, missing the way Sasuke's eye twitched in vexation. You know she's Hinata, and I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The reveal of Naruto's clan rang loudly in her ears, blocking the momentary excitement that exploded inside her at Sasuke's name. You Uzumaki. Karen spluttered out an odd sound, her ruby eyes wide in disbelief. The boy looked nothing like an Uzumaki. No red hair, everyone knew that was the sign of an Uzumaki. He also had a slight tan compared to her, and calm blue eyes were completely unheard of in the clan from the stories her mother used to tell her. Was he being serious? On top of that, no Uzumaki proudly shouted their name to a complete stranger. But deep down, Karen felt a semblance of joy at the idea of family. You better remember it, 'cause I'm gonna be Hokage one day. We getting late? Sasuke cut in impatiently, his eyes fixated on the darkening sky. He's right, Hinata agreed, glancing at Karen apologetically. I hope meet again. See ya later, Karen. Naruto waved. Stay safe, okay. Wait, I'm Karen. He voice trailed as the trio disappeared in the infinite trees. Uzumaki, she finished quietly to the silence. Karen smiled. She wasn't alone. A body of an unfortunate genin who met a cruel fate lay in the center of the clearing. Team 8 explored the area. The stench of blood overwhelmed Kiba's sense of smell. Akamaru shivered, but it wasn't as bad as before. Shino pushed his shades up, examining the sand scattered sporadically over the clearing. Sakura tripped over what she thought was a branch. She had never been more wrong. It was an arm. Kiba clamped his hand over her mouth just as a scream rushed out of her lungs. There were two, she whispered, horrified. There were two ninjas, not one. A decapitated head lay on the other side of the clearing, crushed legs on the opposite side. The corpse had been eviscerated, intestines leaking out of the crushed body, the bones of the skeleton sticking out of the skin. Blood was splattered on the grass, trees, even the leaves on the canopies was stained red. This wasn't a kill, it was an execution. They were from the village hidden in the grass, Shino deduced, dusting his hand over the forehead protector of the dead body. He analyzed the substance on his fingertips. What do you think happened, Shino? The sand, he muttered, rubbing his fingers and watching the brown dust fall. I'm certain it was the shinobi from Hidden Sand. I had a bad feeling about them. The bugs have been restless around them even since the Chunin exams began. Same with Akamaru. He can sense chakra and that Gaara scares him. I've never seen him act like that before. Gaara, Sakura repeated in fear, remembering her first encounter with the creepy red head. The huge gourd he carried must have been full of sand. A weak wheeze caught their attention. They all looked at the genin they assumed was long gone. Shino crouched down to the genin, checking his pulse. Who did this to you? He asked. AM monster. The boy heaved, uttering an ominous warning with his last breath. Heal K, ill us all. His hand went limp and Shino couldn't detect his pulse anymore. His eyes were still open, frozen in unspeakable horror. Shit. This ain't good, Kiba said, shaking his head as the danger of the situation dawned on him. A swift thump on the head had Kiba crashing to the ground. Akamaru, used to Sakura's antics, jumped off Kiba's head just in time. What the hell, Sakura? I told you we should have gone straight to the tower, but no, you wanted to take the long way. Now for all we know we might end up dead too. Unlikely, Shino interrupted. My bugs tell me they moved on, half a mile away in the west direction. It seems they're heading to the tower as well. They were probably taking a detour too. I don't like this trial at all, Sakura muttered. Let's go before we run into more trouble. What's our plan? Naruto asked. We make them think they're ambushing us. They're exhausted and they'll be overconfident. A perfect combination for failure, Sasuke said. So we'll walk right by them and make them think we don't know they're there. Exactly. You and I will take them on. Sasuke he took another look from their vantage point, the shrubbery hiding them as he peered over the cliff edge. The camp that belonged to the ninjas of the Hidden Rain was beside the stream, but they left to find food. That was when he and Naruto would purposely make themselves seen. Hinata, your job is to secure the scroll. If they have the scroll with them, Naruto and I will take it from them and throw it to you. Don't worry about the others attacking you. Naruto and I will make sure they don't have a chance to even look at you. It's gonna be a piece of cake since the bell test with Kakashi Sensei was pretty much the same thing. Naruto cried. I don't think they'll carry the scroll with them. It's too big of a risk, Hinata said, her eyebrows knitted in worry. Sasuke considered her point, a deep look in his eyes as he thought hard. If you can't see they have the scroll with them, then you head to their camp and find it there. They don't know that we know where they rested. With the Byakugan, I know you can do the job quickly. You'll be taking a defensive stance, don't join in with the fight until you have that scroll safe in your bag. Got it. Hinata nodded confidently. Would you look at that, Shiger drawled, the punks from the Leaf Village have an earth scroll. Must be our lucky day, Bayu agreed, eating the last berry he picked. It wasn't much of a breakfast, but it'll do. After the shit we had yesterday, I think our fate's about to change. Midair gripped the stick of the umbrella on his back, readying himself. Why are there only two? Who cares? They have an earth scroll and no way can those two shrimps take on the three of us, the leader, Shiger said. He was the tallest one out of the three. He watched Naruto and Sasuke with his one good eye, the other one permanently closed due to a scar that stretched across his face. He's right. They'll never find out where we're hid our scroll. It's a safe bet. We're going after them. Bayu smirked. Sasuke and Naruto spun back to back, preparing themselves for the inevitable attack. A shower of kunais attached with paper bombs streaked through the silence with a sharp buzz, indicating the arrival of new players. Hinata peered behind a large rock, her X-ray vision examining the enemy's pockets. Her presumption was correct. The Rain Ninjas didn't have the Heaven Scroll. She withdrew, tracing her steps back to the riverside. Her eyes examined the area. The rocks. Nothing hiding there. The river. Hinata cried with delight. The scroll was trapped in a bubble, hidden deep in the water. It would have been invisible to the eye, but her Byakugan could see through the camouflage. Hinata took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. She jumped into the cold water, tensing at the freezing temperature. Sasuke and Naruto were relying on her. She could not let them down. Ignoring the sting of freezing water, Hinata swam further down, her hands only a few feet away from the Heaven Scroll. Sasuke activated his Sharingan, not because he was worried. Not in the least. His sensei, Kakashi Hatake, was known as the notorious copy ninja because of his Sharingan Eye's ability to copy jutsus in a matter of seconds. Sasuke was a pure-blooded Uchiha with a Sharingan in both eyes, and he was fully determined to copy techniques and use it to his advantage. What better opportunity than this battle? And with two ninjas deciding to take him on, Sasuke took pleasure in the chance to steal special jutsus from the hidden rain. Naruto was usually irritated when others paid more attention to Sasuke, but instead he felt a surprising sense of pride for his teammate. He focused his attention to the ninja charging at him, the short stubby one. His opponent threw the first punch, an attack Naruto easily dodged and countered with a powerful blow to the ribs. It was soon clear that he couldn't beat him in hand-to-hand combat. Bayu jumped away, his fingers entwined as he prepared for a long-range attack. Naruto's deftness with a kunai knife was evident when his aim pierced the foe's palm as he was making hand signs. He surprised himself at the power behind the shot, blinking in confusion at his own hands. He expected the knife to distract the enemy, not shoot straight through his hand. Naruto cringed slightly as the gruesome gash as the Rain Genin held it up, looking at Naruto in horror through the hole. A now disabled Bayu screamed at his injury, retreating from Naruto. Water style. Rain bullets. Shiger said, swiftly performing the hand signs. Sasuke's red orbs watched the intricate hand signs whilst dodging the umbrella thrown in his direction by midair. He threw a barrage of shurikens, deflecting the attack. A pain surged from the curse mark, causing him to lose his footing. Sasuke toppled over, falling onto the ground, his hand automatically clutching the mark. Aren't you an Uchiha? Midair taunted. Hey Shiger, let's finish this kid off once and for all. Sasuke gritted his teeth. The agony of the curse mark throbbed more than ever. Why the hell did it have to be such an inconvenience right now? He and Shiger tossed their umbrellas into the air. Senbon shower. Sasuke. Naruto cried. His hands formed a quick sign, summoning 3 shadow clones. But his clones were too slow to protect Sasuke, and the attack was firing from all sides. Protective 8 trigrams. 64 palm. Hinata yelled, leaping in front of Sasuke. She created a barrier, deflecting the metal needles with fine chakra shooting from her palms. Naruto cheered at her incredible timing. So you're the third one, Shiger sneered. Little girl, you'll regret joining the fight. Naruto and 3 shadow clones fought midair. The rain ninja struggled to keep up. Being tactician off the group, he didn't expect the fight to take a turn like this. The blonde's stamina was plain ridiculous. Hinata took on Shiger alone. He grunted in displeasure, taken aback by her ferocity in her jabs. Though he wasn't scared, not one bit. Her attacks were flimsy, and though her felt Hinata's prods, she didn't land a direct hit on his body. He blocked her jabs with his umbrella, pushing her away. Is that the best? Shiger paused, feeling a numbness in his arms spreading to the rest of his body. His knees gave in, falling to the ground, his hold on the umbrella loosening. What the hell? It's my family's jutsu, the gentle fist. I can block your tenketsu by touching it. Shiger's eyes widened, his fear palpable. He looked around. Bayu was nowhere to be seen and midair was taking a beating from the blonde and his clones. It was painfully obvious they wouldn't win this battle with the genins from the hidden leaf. We don't have the scroll. Shiger announced, his ego bruised at the surrender. Please let us go. Naruto stopped midway of a punch, his shadow clones puffing out of existence. Hinata exchanged glances with Sasuke and Naruto, unsure whether to let him go. Sasuke hauled himself to his feet, giving her a curt nod. Midair stumbled away from Naruto, running to Shiger's side. If we see you again, we won't hesitate to kill you, Sasuke declared brusquely. After Shigaru and Midair leapt into sanctuary of the nearby trees and were out of view, Hinata pulled out the 2 scrolls from her pocket, beaming with pride. We've done it! Naruto cried in glee, swinging an arm around Sasuke's shoulder as he jumped up and down enthusiastically. Sasuke relented, bringing his arm around Naruto, the edge of his mouth twitching upwards at Naruto's elation. Hinata grinned, joining in with the festivity as she threw an arm around both of them. This team hug isn't gonna be a thing, is it? Sasuke quipped in spite of the wide smile on his face.